Okay, we're ready to go. And turn off. Okay. And okay.
Again, take one.
So I just do a sound check.
Oh, I love if we did them all.
Online participants, can you please let me know if
We can hear you.
great.
Yeah. Can you hear it?
Yes.
Good evening. This is the Ava Community Energy Community Advisory Committee meeting for September 15, 2025, 6 p.m. We are here in the large conference room of the Rotunda Building in Oakland, California, with a few folks remote, about 4. So welcome, and let's have a roll call.
Thank you. Member Landry.
Present.
Member Wenner.
Present.
Member Bakassoon.
Present.
Member Stevenson. Member Swaminathan.
Present.
Member Lakshman. Member Pacheco. Member Harper.
Present.
Member Lutz.
That's you.
Yes,
I'm here.
thank you. Vice Chair Susan.
I'm here too.
Chair Hernandez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Adrian. On public comment, item C2, this item is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any Ava Community Energy related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time the matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the committee are customarily limited to 3 minutes per speaker, must complete an electronic speaker slip. The committee chair may increase or decrease the time allocated to each speaker. Adrian, do you have any public comment people raised?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Any hands raised in the room? We're good. All right.
Oh, sure.
You have a comment for something that's not on the agenda?
Oh, no. it's not.
All right, perfect. With that, we'll jump into the approval of the minutes from July 16, 2025. You should have all received the minutes from Adrian in the packet. They are more consolidated, more brief, and now it's just taking more of the action items. It's a change from before. We've seen more details in the previous notes. As I understand it, there's just a shift to be more efficient on the minutes. If there are no objections to the format, we can proceed with the review and approval, and I can take the motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second?
I second.
Yes, we have Peter and Indira, a first and second respectively. Any other dialogue?
Don't want to hold things up, but those set of meetings are very cryptic. Those set of minutes.
The 7 minutes?
That's an objection to the new format.
But that's why I'm asking. So we can discuss now that we have a first and second to prove it about the meeting minutes. They're more consolidated. In the past, Adrian's been able to deliver more details around what occurred in various conversations and not just the action items. So it just depends if we want to see the level of detail. You might have seen that in the past. Some level of detail was more about what I did during the reporting out, what things I've discussed. For example, the last meeting I worked through discussing what the board meeting was discussing, including Sunrun, load modification, the root and soul sponsorship, updates on service launches. And then Vice Chair also reported out before that, more about activity there in that chair report. So there's a lot more detail in the way that Adrian's done in the past. The new version of it, and I have a version of the detailed minutes. It is much more limited, so it's harder to remember what we might have missed, especially for some folks who might have not been here. So this is one way to really catch up on the minutes, not just the action items. So if we want to defer this item to see what compares to maybe in more detailed, we can defer that action on the approval of these minutes. But we have a first and second, but we can take a substitute motion to defer this and see what else we want to discuss or discuss it further.
Can we discuss it? Do we discuss it before or after we defer?
So this is something through Ava and Adrian. Do you want to speak to the concern or what we're seeing?
I would be happy to hear feedback about the minutes perhaps before we take the vote.
Okay. So I see a lot more detail in some of the minutes from the past, and I think it's important to capture that level of detail. We can figure out how or what we want to do, but I think finding the right balance between the action and the notes are critical for this committee. Sometimes you have committee members that really can't and will not be able to show up, and sometimes you have turnover. That's hard to catch up on the committee, and it depends where you're going with time and energy. I think it's important to keep the minutes somewhat as is, but maybe it can be more consolidated. So we can do like a comparison, because right now you have minutes up. I don't know if you have those shared or not, but you have some opportunities to share the current minutes, and it's very much just tell me what happened, but not,
Okay.
what was said. And I think in the past minutes, you have more details
Okay.
of the items.
Would you like me to place either version?
If you're able to show a comparison, if you have the longer version, that would be great. If you could share something like that, just what was and what is projected in the future. And then you can take some feedback from the committee.
We should also say that I do keep the timestamps in the meeting, in the minutes, and those are available. We do have the recording available, as well as a transcript that is available, on YouTube with the recording. So it's easy to find the various parts of the meeting that you're looking for. Let me go ahead and put the minutes on this. On the
Yeah,
screen.
while you're
Let me
doing
share.
that, maybe you could use technology to leverage like the YouTube, if it transcribed, and that having a link in the minutes to the transcription could be helpful. Sometimes you have so much of AI that allows you to summarize the minutes by itself.
Sure.
When they were there, I looked.
Adrian,
Yes.
can you tell me what page the ed minutes are? Because I'm not seeing them. I mean, I know it's item C3, but I don't see them in the packet. It's just me.
They're on page 3, right? The third page in the packet.
Oh, okay.
There's a physical packet behind you.
This one.
Yes.
It's so the third page.
Oh, so those are brief and yeah.
So you want to bring up the more detailed version of the minutes?
Okay.
Oh, those
So everybody should have a copy of
These
the-
are the minutes that I have that are in the packet. And let me pull up the version that hold on one second.
Adrian, while you're pulling that up, I'll just make a note for the record that my title is incorrect in the minutes. It says Chief Technology Officer and it should be Chief Customer Officer.
Right. I'll make that
I am
correction.
not ready to take on the technology. Thank you.
My apologies. I'll make that correction. Hold on one second. While I'm pulling this up, if and a member Let's had comments about the minutes.
I think he wants to see what the version you have.
I do want to just add another comment. So our legal director is in charge of sort of running the operations of these programs. And he has asked me to announce that this is a new format of the minutes that is intended to be a current standard. And Adrian has been expressly instructed to follow this format in order to create some efficiencies and avoid redundant effort. It has been rather time consuming to write out a transcript. And this is as Adrian has been directed by our legal director on this topic.
Okay.
Yes.
I had thought that might be the case. And I have a feeling that this is not to achieve its efficiencies, but rather to avoid legal liability. And my sense is that someone is worried that if the back and forth that we have and the debates that we have on these issues is raised, someone might then use that to challenge a board of directors decision by saying at some level, somebody on the advisory council was opposed, which as far as I can tell has no legal weight whatsoever, but someone might use it for that purpose. Anyway, it seems to me that cutting down on the discussion in the minutes is intended to do that, and that's the reason for it. And I have no comment on it otherwise.
Well, I think it's important to really understand what was and could be, regardless of legal, still direction can be given staff to staff, but ultimately the board of directors have on policy and also can explain what they'd like to see, not see in their minutes, and they accept or not accept them. So there's a way to, they want to reduce it, be more efficient, but the content also is a value, trying to find a compromise. Because at the end of the day, yes, there's leadership and there's individuals like Adrian who's doing the work here to get the minutes, but also depends on board policy, how they like to see the minutes presented. And there can be a variation of just the actions, there can be comments, but you also have transcript. So I think just trying to find the happy medium between details and maybe calling out the portions of where certain things happen are important. And I think the transcript that you do upload to YouTube could be beneficial and consolidated to make the job more easy. And it can be an appendix to your minutes if you'd like it to. But are you planning to still show any other minutes or?
Yes. I was just waiting to.
And I'll just say on Adrian's behalf, if you don't mind my stepping in, and for those who are online or who I don't know, I'm Annie Henderson, the Chief Customer Officer for Ava Community Energy. I myself, as well as Adrian, we can take this feedback to our legal director, but we will have to have a discussion internally to see what the best path forward is.
So thank you, Annie. So if you look at what would be one good example, let's see, in the minutes, we have was there public comment that time? So this was so what's the item that we talked through? Annie's report. So Annie, in last July, we had your presentation, the Chief Technology Officer comment, right? So there, if you look at item C5, what do you have for C5? So you have a couple paragraphs that highlights the conversation that about 12, 15-month effort to really create a strategic roadmap for customer programs building on the 2018-2023 development business plan, et cetera. And in response, member let's warn that the two long-term forces could imperil the agency if it stays the course. And in the new minutes, we have Andy Henderson introduce the item and address questions from Community Advisory Committee members. And then open the public comment with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 speakers. Something like that. So it's very much consolidated. So yes, Indra.
Not being here at the last meeting, it's not doesn't help me that much. I guess my question would be, what's the purpose of these minutes? And I thought it was because our meetings are monthly. It helps with the continuity of our thinking. And I guess what it would do is require us to take more notes ourselves, which I guess we could do. But I guess the question is, what's the purpose of these minutes?
Yes, Peter.
I don't know if it would help with your counsel if we asked that our discussion be mentioned to the extent it has been previously, but we could redact any comments by staff. If council believes that it's the mention of what staff says that could be a problem, because it would then not enable staff to speak freely, then we could ask that perhaps be redacted and yet our comments be, made more freely.
And
Thank you. I'm stepping outside of my scope, not a lawyer. However, all of these meetings, when we do have a quorum, are recorded. So redactions don't really make any difference. And I don't think the intent of the abbreviation of the minutes was to somehow not have that documented in the record because we always have the video as well.
Thank you. That's helpful.
So thank you. Yes. And I think also maybe we're just trying to make sure we're more efficient with Adrian's time because I think he has a lot on his plate and more stuff's growing. So hopefully we find the right balance, but I'll give the mic to Cynthia.
Thank you. I don't want to make, Adrian's job any harder, but I do like the format of the previous minutes. I know that, you're very diligent and it takes a long time, but I think, I don't know if the directors, and all due respect, have the time to go back to YouTube and look at the other ways that the discussion is captured. So I think this is a very good summary for the directors to know what the input was at the Community Advisory Committee. I mean, to the extent that we can have links in there, that would be helpful. But it's not only these minutes are not only for us, but it's for the greater community. And I just would like to see it remain as it is, with perhaps a few more efficiencies that we could vet at a future meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, I think to Member Landry's comment, I think it's valuable for the board of directors to see a little bit more detail from this committee because I doubt they really want to spend the time. When I was on board, I don't think I really even had that time to look at, videos. But if you had more use of technology, transcription from the YouTube link, and then be able to summarize that using AI, what have you, because it can summarize that through Adobe. And then you have the minutes and the timestamp. So maybe figure out ways to be more efficient, provide the detail we'd like to see in the minutes that we're used to, but figure out how we can be more efficient with your time. I think that's something for your leadership to discuss. I think there is value having some of those details rather than just the action items.
Is it appropriate? I would like to retract my seconding of the motion to accept the minutes.
Okay. So we will table the minutes, is what I'm hearing. Is that okay, Jim, to table it, and maybe we'll get more detail of those minutes in the future?
Yeah,
Or was it Peter? You made the first.
I did. I will, yeah, I would agree to table it.
Okay, so we'll table the approval of the minutes to the following month. We'll look to see more information in the minutes as they're just the actions, but we need some more details, I think, of value. So we'll see how we can bring that forward in the next month, and hopefully some kind of compromise could be done. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other item, any other discussion before we move on? Do we need to vote on that? I think we just need to, I recall, tabling the minutes, we can just
I
table.
think we just say.
Okay. Mickey, you want anything to
Well, I
say?
was just curious, this is all for all the meetings, right?
Yes, moving forward for all meetings.
It'd be, maybe we could see meetings from, the board or something.
My bet is that the board is most interested in having consistency because they want to do it for their meetings. And so they're trying to do it for everybody. But I don't,
Just make sure we're speaking.
Mike,
I don't know that consistency is really all that important here, so.
we'll table the minutes for now, and if there's nobody objection, we'll look for a little bit more detail or whatever you can to work with the leadership to be more efficient. I mean, using some technology tools and references, and hopefully that works better. But we can go offline and talk through it too.
Absolutely.
We'll work through that.
And perhaps working with, like I said, the transcript that'll be available, the timestamps that are available. The action minutes are considered to be the best practice for minutes. So that was also taken into account when the decision was made to move to action minutes.
Of course, I understand that might be the standard, but I think that the committee's asking for something different. All right, thank you very much.
All right.
I'll charge him extra.
I had another
You have another comment?
on that.
1 second.
There's just also having a historical record. I'm uncomfortable with counting on YouTube to keep everything. Because at some point, it might not be for 5, 10 years, but at some point, YouTube's gonna go the way of, all, well, not so much dinosaurs, but I'm thinking of all those social media vendors and companies that don't exist, like My Place, My Home.
MySpace.
MySpace. Yeah, so, at some point, they're gonna go away, and that seems not a good, I mean, maybe Ava could keep them on the record somewhere else.
Thank you. And any other member comments online?
If it's still on the minutes,
Yes.
we're just real quick, I agree that there needs to be some kind of middle ground between the minutes for the last 2 meetings. I think that you can do a little bit more to strike a balance on some of the key perspectives and themes that are provided as opposed to just overview of strategic roadmap. That's definitely not doing due diligence. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Harper. With that, I know we're going to table the item, but there's a request to have a speaker comment, a public comment. So Jessica, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, first I want to just acknowledge the previous notes were pretty shorthanded and but they gave you a breath of what the conversation was about. I do think public comments are very important. I do think comments from the CAC and the board are very important because it also, when there's a vote on something or an issue being talked about, you can elaborate, request more information, and that's not being captured here, or the breadth of the comments from the public. So that omitting that really hinders our way of weighing in, and it does not feel good. The other thing I want to say is we did submit a letter today that was not sent to the Community Advisory Committee. And so I'm concerned that there's been some kind of pullback on getting our public comments in. I'm really concerned. So I want to know what's going on here.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for that comment to address the letter. If AD wants to speak to this letter that was emailed, but it depends on the cutoff time, of course, and when it was sent. So no worries.
There were 2 letters that were sent. The first letter that was sent, that was submitted about a week ago, has been distributed. Another letter was sent earlier today. I did not have the opportunity to distribute that letter prior to the start of the meeting. It will be distributed as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, we're going to move forward to the chair report. I was not the last board meeting, but Vice Chair Souza was. Do you want to speak to your minutes, or do you want me to try to summarize the comments from the minutes? I'm either happy to do there. Okay, that's okay. I think there were some public comments, and Jim spoke about the threats to AVA, such as PG&E rates rising, and the solar battery will increase in pricing, bad for AVA's business model. I think Ayla Paz also mentioned there's no community engagement for the RFP process, even though the CAC has offered a source of wisdom and counsel. The current roadmap is limited, according to this public speaker, to customer programming and electrification instead of focusing on resilient sources of electricity, responding to Trump's tax on renewables and a plan to end PCIA increases. She recommends that AVA invest in developing its litigation, political strategies, and forms of ratepayer advocacy. And Cynthia also spoke about AVA foundational documents that are no longer on the AVA website, and was informed that this decision was made to not return this information to the AVA website. And then CEO Chang reported out they have 2 new hires, a Salesforce director and a marketing manager. And then also spoke about the electric bikes program. It's the 3rd largest in the country. A mailer was sent out to AVA customers, a target of 8,200 to 9,200 incentives. Is that what I understand?
It was like 400
to $400 to $1,500 per.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it's a scale.
And about 600 people have applied or submitted for the lottery, or I'm not sure, it's the random drawing, excuse me. And there are 24 chosen bike shops. About $10 million being allocated to this program, 6 million of which coming from AVA and 4 from ACTC, or the Alameda County Transportation Department, or
Yeah.
Commission, right? Commission. Yeah, the commission. That's okay. And no management of what geographical areas get the incentive, Oakland versus Hayward, but it has driven a lot of excitement. I understand there also a new page on AVA's website for the rate structure was added for customers. Fremont is moving to 100% renewable default versus a bright choice rate. Stats show that many customers were made aware of this change and are okay with it. Item 813 had AVA compliance procurement method presentation and vote. I think they selected the compliance period being the second option from 24-27, a 4-year period. Starting on 2025 allows us to sort of stagger the compliance period of what we're meeting with our targets and really work through those benefits throughout a longer period. In some ways, I think that's how we summarize that. The renewable program portfolio the renewable procurement standards. You can somewhat bank part of it, I believe, and then have it flattened. I think it's over 4 years. I think that's what the board decided.
Yeah, it was this is the staggering of the procurement. So there's a.
Can you put the mic closer? The mic closer for.
There's a procurement requirement for from the California state and to stay within the sync of how they're reporting. It's not a benefit for us. So if we staggered it, we could use prior years when we overproduced. So
That's correct.
it looked pretty good and robust. And so as you can see, it was voted to move forward with the option 2.
Yeah, I think we heard part of that here at one of the meetings, didn't we? And no. That we heard us all that smoothing out overall. But they went to option 2, which probably is more beneficial overall to the community energy group. Going back to your minutes, they had the rate stabilization presentation and informational item, which I think we'll be talking more this evening. And I think we also had a procurement change on some recent power presentation. It's a long-term power purchase agreement of 200 megawatts, 184 megawatts of EDPR, up to 20 years. Somebody can remind me what EDPR stands for? What's that?
It's the developer, the name of the developer.
EDPR, California Solar Park. Got it. Thank you. I think there's some headwinds. It says that you mentioned that political and economic climate. Project developers are unwilling to take on the tariffs and are hesitant because the current administration hostility towards renewables. Because of the project maturity, the Sunrisa project is less at risk. And that follows some other purchase agreements. There was 2 different votes. The vote was separated into the project for the sake of current obstacles, solar power purchase agreement and the battery storage agreement. They both passed. And then we have new board leadership, who was vice chair is now chair, which is Mayor Betsy Anderson of Piedmont. And then Mayor Juan Gonzalez of San Leandro is now vice chair. And Mayor Jack Balch is outgoing, transition to more responsibilities outside of AVA, including that of running the city of Pleasanton. Thank you very much, Mickey, for those notes.
Thank you for bringing them.
Everything's organized. Any comments or questions about the chair's report? In the room? Online? All right, any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Next item will be the customer program roadmap update. It's an informational item. It's not by the chief technology officer, but the chief customer officer.
Yeah, thank you.
Annie, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Again, Annie Henderson, Chief Customer Officer at AVA. While Adrian is pulling this up, I'm going to give it a little bit of context. So a very similar version of this presentation went to our executive committee in July. The CAC members, the chair, the vice chair, and member Lutz as the chair or lead member of the ad hoc committee on LDBP were notified of that so that they could add it to the July agenda, which they decided to. So I did give that presentation to this committee in July. I will note that the executive committee in July lost quorum prior to the item where I presented this. We continued the meeting over Zoom, but the recordings were turned off and there were no official minutes. But that was delivered. There was some public comment, but it wasn't really the full process. So we did have an official meeting for the CAC where it was recorded. There was discussion. Then we had the August recess of the board and the CAC. So I brought the item back with some revisions to reflect additional progress that had been made around the project. Brought that to the executive committee this month in September, the beginning of this month. And so that it could be officially part of the record, part of the minutes, recorded and deliver the presentation, notified the same group of CAC members. And here we are tonight to talk about it again. So because I have delivered this presentation before to this body, I'm going to try and be fairly brief. However, I know that some members were not in attendance or members of the public were not in attendance. So if you have additional questions, please maybe note those down and we can review them. But I know that there has been discussion within the ad hoc committee, so I want to leave as much time as possible to have discussion rather than me sort of going over the content within the slides. But with that, Adrienne, I'm going to maybe be a little bit on fast forward so we can go to the next slide. So I think this will come up in our discussion, but the purpose of this presentation is to present essentially a plan for a plan. It is how we intend to develop a roadmap specifically for customer programs. So the things that we offer to our customers around energy and electrification, and it is not focused on our commodity supply. It doesn't mean that we aren't thinking about that as an agency. It's just not part of what we're trying to focus in on with this effort. Next slide, please. We are looking for this effort to help us really refine what our goal and our priorities are in delivering these programs to customers throughout our service territory. And we're looking at a time frame through 2032. And this is really helpful, I think, both internally, but also externally. And externally, I'm thinking of a key stakeholder group. It is our local staff partners from all of our member jurisdictions. Many of them have climate action plans. They want to know how our efforts are going to supplement what they're intending to do to address climate change within their communities and in our area. So having this roadmap will help us sort of plan our resources, so staffing, budget, time, as well as key stakeholders such as our member jurisdictions, as well as other agencies like BayREN, Stop Waste, those kind of agencies who we want to be supplementing what we do to achieve our identified goals. And then, of course, better planning and transparency. It is not addressing our wholesale commodity, and we are not intending for this end product to be detailed program implementation plans. It will be program concepts that will then come back to be developed into specific implementation plans, but that will continue to go through the public process of coming to the board for contracts and sort of we get our budget approval each year, but then before we spend those dollars, we come back and get authorization again for major budget centers. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So this, I'm trying to share what has been a long time discussing for myself, for other members of staff, for stakeholders that we've talked to, trying to say, how do we really take this concept of customer programs and turn it into something actionable? That's very important for me in the role that I play, and really finding a focus and prioritization. And so looking at this goal of decarbonization, but knowing that there's a lot more that we're trying to do as an agency. If, for example, we wanted only to focus on decarbonization, we might pick the very highest, most easy kind of low-hanging fruit. But we know that there are other priorities within the agency related to affordability or equity or public health. And so through this process, we want to try and surface those priorities and understand them better, and then have these program concepts feed into those priorities so that in the end, we have a roadmap or a portfolio that is addressing those priorities. Not every single program will address every priority, but across the portfolio, we are hoping to touch as many of those priorities as possible within reason, budget, resources, time allocation. And so I noted here some of the potential priority areas. We can go to the next slide, please. So a bit on our process and timeline overview. I have here that it started in April 25 because there has been a lot of thought process to just go into how do we roll out a plan for a plan. So there really has been quite a bit of work done to bring something forward that then can be responded to in forums such as this, our publicly noticed meetings where we welcome the public in to provide comment and seek feedback from our members. So we did a lot of pre-development work, and then we have issued an RFP for a consultant, and these chevrons sort of after the first one on the left represent some of the major deliverables that we are expecting from a consultant. So a market assessment, some sort of like a catalog or a menu of program concepts, then helping us identify how we're going to measure the success, because those metrics are very important. And that's a little bit of an iterative cycle between the concepts and the metrics. And then ultimately looking at, okay, well, what is that portfolio going to look like? And then delivering this final strategic roadmap, not deep down in the weeds of program implementation, but something that helps guide us and gives us guardrails of this is the portfolio of program concepts. These are the market segments, the target audiences. These are the goals that we're trying to achieve. And so throughout this process, we will be using the regular public meetings, such as the board, CAC, the executive committee. We'll collaborate with the municipal staff. We often refer to them as our Muni pals. And then, of course, engagement with stakeholders. That component has remained kind of undefined in this process. And there was an attachment to this presentation when it went to the executive committee that was a high-level outline of the RFP. The RFP wasn't on the market yet. It is now, so you can see the entirety of it. But there is a task there where we're looking for a consultant with expertise in outreach and engagement to give us their best recommendation. So that will be part of the evaluation process. And so that is intentionally not defined in the materials that are in market right now. So work to date, I already gave the list of meetings we've presented to. We have a staff working group that is, we are now, I think, over 100 staff, maybe 105. So we have a lot of, I'm sorry, I stopped asking you to move the slides. Thank you, Adrian and Kate. So we have a group of staff subject matter experts that will help to provide feedback and give their perspective. We also have a Tiger team. So that is myself, my colleague, JP Ross, who is here tonight, and then 2 additional members of his team, which is the local development team. We did publish, this is a little out of date because this was from the executive committee meeting on the 5th, I think it was, or the 3rd. We did publish the RFP. In fact, today was the last day for official questions. We'll be responding to those in the next couple days. If we want to go to the next slide, I think this will follow what I'm saying. The RFP responses are due by the end of the month, the 29th. And then we will be making a selection in October. And then we'll be bringing that contract to the board in November to then kick off in December, work really getting underway in January, at which point we will bring additional stakeholder mapping and a basic timeline. We have an idea of what we think the timeline is going to be, but we really need to engage with this key partner to finalize that. And so those are updates that we would be bringing back to the board. And with that, that is the end of the deck. The reference is the slides. The next slide is actually then leads into the original July executive committee slides for background. But with that, I'll pause.
Thank you. Clarifying questions?
Hi, Ernie, how are you doing? Welcome. I know we didn't, for the record, you made it, Member Pacheco's in the house.
I apologize. I jumped into the bit here a little bit. Sorry.
Go ahead, jump in.
But
The microphone needs to be closer.
Sure.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Annie, for all the work that you've been doing on this, you and the whole team. One thing that you just verbally said here, and I was happy to hear because it has been somewhat of a concern of ours as we're looking at the process as the proposed process is laid out, was that decarbonization, while absolutely a primary goal, is not the only one. And I heard you articulate that. And we want to make sure that's really captured because it kind of felt, at least to me, that that wasn't as clear as maybe it's needed to be to the potential respondents to the RFP. And I didn't want to lose that in the process. And then also, so a little clarification for me. So one of the concerns that I had, and so our ad hoc committee, which I think Jim will do a little report back later, was that I know that I'll just speak for myself and he can speak for the ad hoc committee. I felt that didn't look like there was enough public input process in this early enough. It looked like it was all at the end, and that can make a big difference in how things are shaped. As you know, most people in this room, myself included, have been engaged in multiple climate action plans for different cities in the county. And we've been, engaged in different charrettes for traffic plans and all kinds of stuff. And just my experience, and probably a lot, is that it really does make a difference when you have people come in early, meet the actual consultant, do their little surveys and their feedback and whatnot. So as you were describing the process, I think I heard something that I didn't catch by reading the materials. Are you saying that the consultant in their response can actually propose additional public comment periods or shape that? Okay, I didn't catch that okay. So theoretically, and you're nodding, for the record, Annie is nodding. So, yeah. Would the respondents know that? I mean, are they aware that? Because to me, kind of it seemed like it was a prescribed public comment period process, and you were saying, how do you propose to implement it and at what cost? As opposed to, and you can correct me, as opposed to, we're looking for a robust public comment process. What is your ideas on it? So I'll stop there and let you respond on that.
Okay. Yeah. So yes, it is under task 4 and the intent, and to your question of do respondents understand that, just at the very end of our working day, I did see a list of consolidated questions that had come in. I didn't have a chance to look through them, so I'm not sure if there was any clarifying comments about that. We did do a bidders webinar last week. Yeah, last week. So there was an opportunity to ask questions. I don't recall there being any questions on that one at that time. But our intent with this task 4 was really not to be sequential. So if you look at tasks 1 through 11, they're not necessarily sequential. Task 4 can really cut across all of these tasks and all of the different sort of major milestones in the process. And so what we've asked is, and actually we were, some of our early due diligence, we were given the feedback, don't say workshop, don't say.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just maybe you want to bring up your outline. You have it up. It's in the packet, so you can maybe referencing
Okay.
task 4. It's hard to follow when you say task 4.
I see.
So I want to make sure I just pause for a second, let him bring up.
Task 4 is community and stakeholder engagement. So what I was trying to say is that we were actually kind of coached to don't specify the format, allow the consultant to indicate what they believe and they recommend to be the best format for different stakeholder groups. And so we wanted to be mindful of that, and sort of has led to maybe what is perceived as a lack of definition. It was actually intentional so that we can get the best recommendations from respondents to the RFP.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up question on that?
You follow up.
Okay, thank you. So also a concern, so that actually, I'm glad to hear that, because I didn't understand that from the presentation, my fault earlier. If the respondents, I guess a concern would be if the respondents don't respond, or the winning respondents, the final few that are chosen, don't respond with a robust public comment process where people are given a chance to comment earlier in the process for each of the segments. Yeah, I guess I'm afraid that that might get missed. Well, no one put it in their plan, and so we're just picking the best.
Well, I mean, ultimately, whatever consultant is selected, we as staff will be managing that contract and can say, okay, we've heard in public comment that your plan as initially proposed is not going to be robust enough. So could you please add in more engagement in the earlier stages and recommend a format by which you would do that? So this, there's an internal team that will be on the selection committee. We don't have to just take what they give us. If we feel that it meets misses the mark, but we like other components and we feel it's a strong proposal, we can work with these consultants to better craft something that's more appropriate for our service territory. JP?
Yeah, JP Ross, Vice President of Local Development. I also just wanted to add, so within attachment A, which specifies the required response information, we are requiring in sub-bullet 4 that what is their stakeholder engagement strategy. So if somebody is missing it, it means they're not reading the RFP clearly
Okay.
to know that that's something that we need their response on. And, we detail out a couple of bullets of what we need there. So it's going to be a, part of our evaluation. If they're missing key parts of the response, then that is, we can either work with them to refine it if they're stronger in other areas. But I think it's very clear within the documentation that's something that we are looking for a response for.
Okay, no, thank you. I speed read the RFP, but I'm not an RFP expert, and I think I'm stepping over what Jim will talk about in our little later, but also concern about the public was geographically dispersed. I mean, we now have a very wide service area, so that's something that you guys are cognizant of, and we would want our consultant to do workshops, charrettes, whatever the word is. And I'm curious about why you were coached not to use that word. That's interesting. Okay, but yeah, I would just say that, obviously we would want everyone in our service territory, even if it's all the way, well, especially if it's all the way in Stockton, to have a chance for people to come in and participate. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, speaking of Stockton, Member Harper.
Thanks. Just want to echo, super happy this is happening. Customer programs I see as the bread and butter CCAs. I was also hoping to learn a little bit more about the kind of deference to consultants relative to the engagement strategy and timeline. So I'm wondering if consultants are incentivized in some way to propose a sub-consultant budget for trusted messenger organizations. That could be, for example, facilitating focus groups with disadvantaged community members, or if you're anticipating them to provide a separate marketing budget for getting things like surveys out through paid ads or mailers about different program priorities. I think just generally trying to understand what's really the actual breadth of engagement you're looking to get across the service area. Is it the vast majority of it very deep engagement through the board and the CAC and some social media, or are you looking to actually work with the consultant that has identified community-based experts throughout the service territory? Because I find it really difficult to believe that you're going to have one consultant that proposes or has all of the kind of necessary conditions relative to knowing the communities themselves, if that makes sense. So I guess that's how you're thinking about that, where you draw the line, so on and so forth. And coming from the Stockton and San Joaquin County perspective, again, we're inherently, I would say, at a disadvantage in this planning process, in that there's going to be far less familiarity with what AVA even is, which is a pretty important prerequisite for making recommendations or giving feedback on what kinds of local decarbonization programs that the community wants to see.
Is it okay to respond? Okay, so Davis, maybe starting at the last comment you made, working backwards, I actually think there is a lot of value in what you just said about folks not being familiar with decarbonization concepts. They still know what's important to them. And what is important to them is what we want to build into the priority structure and the program concepts that are focused on decarbonization, but to meet the needs of the community. And the community absolutely knows what their needs are. They just might not know that, oh, that's going to be met with a heat pump water heater, which is fine. That's why we're here and have subject matter experts on staff, as well as engaging with these external resources. But going back, I think there are sort of three comments I wanted to make, and hopefully this is addressing what you said. One, we do absolutely intend to leverage the existing structure that is already in place as a public agency. We notice our meetings, they are open to the public. You can participate through a hybrid or in-person manner. You can make public comment. So we have the board, we have all of our subcommittees, we have the CAC, all our forums to collect feedback and get comments. So absolutely want to use those. We will also be engaging with the municipal staff. And then we left it very open to the consultants, and that was intentional to see what they bring to the table. And, the beauty of an RFP is we get to learn through that and see all of the different proposals and then apply that lens when we are selecting the consultant that we would like to work with. And then lastly, I just want to say some of what you said, and I can't recall exactly the words, but it made me think that you were looking for like implementation, program design level feedback. And that is not what we're looking to do with the roadmap. It will be a higher level. And so that is sort of a future state of when we might do more design charrettes, to use your word. That would be a future state and not something that we're contemplating under the roadmap.
If I may respond quickly, I think, so I definitely wasn't referencing like an implementation period. I was mainly just talking about community engagement for like developing the strategic roadmap and just making sure that there's good, strong partnership with trusted messenger organizations. That I respectfully like disagree a little bit that if folks do know their needs and challenges, but why are they going to tell you it if they don't know who you are or what you can do about it, right? So I think that's all I'll say on it. I'm excited to see like what competing bids come in, and definitely want to stay active and engaged at least through the CAC. Just really hoping that it can be a bit more inclusive of a community engagement effort than standard local government procedure.
Chair?
Yes.
Just one other point. We, in preparation for this work, we did have some feedback sessions with potential experts in this field who do this work. And one of, you can imagine that there's some consultancies or firms that would do this work that are highly technical and they're really thinking about the technology. And what I found very refreshing was there was a lot of focus on what's the process going to be and what's your engagement strategy going to be, because it's only successful if you have buy-in, from your community, if you have buy-in from your board, if you have buy-in from the people who you are reaching out to potentially engage with, like other regional entities. So this is very much not viewed as just, dollars and technology. It's how do we get that level of understanding and consensus as we go through the process. And so, I felt like we were trying to take that and think about, okay, we want these parties to have the flexibility to outline what they have seen work in other instances of putting together strategic plans like this from an engagement perspective. And then we get to review that. Ideally we're getting multiple bids and we get to cherry pick what's the best to then, put that into a scope of work and feedback with a selected vendor. So very much felt like those initial discussions were quite helpful in helping us fleshing out what we thought our engagement strategy should be.
Sweet. Thank you, JP. I do appreciate that acknowledgement.
All right, thank you. We'll go to member Innsbruck. Yes.
I just wanted to
Jim
follow.
after.
I just wanted to follow up. I very much appreciate your process, and I really like when you said checking to see if it's robust enough when you're reviewing them. I think about the word engagement, which I think is a really good word, but I'm a little confused by the high level. So, I think of public relations, public involvement, public engagement, but I'm not sure what level, how you're guiding the consultants as to engage intently with the community, and a little bit of what Davis said. So I think that's kind of like an important point to clarify with the consultants.
Thank you.
Jim? Yeah, I'd like to call everybody's attention to the RFP, the Ava Strategic Planning RFP draft. I believe that was sent out as part of the RFP packet. There is a section there on evaluation criteria on how the RFPs will of how the responses will be evaluated. And, you know, how many points they get for what sort of categories out of, I assume it's a total of 100 points. I didn't add them up. There's 15 points for the stakeholder engagement approach. And they're good descriptions of it, but it mostly is that the responses have a clear understanding, and it's not specifying where directly in the process, how widespread. It's good, but it's not maybe nearly as focused as Ernie would want. So, or Davis. So.
Peter Wagner.
Annie, I just want to salute you. I think it's very difficult to do all this. And I think you've done a really good job.
Thank you.
So I don't have any quibbles with it. The only question I have is the kind of the intangibles in terms of how you select people. You won't do it all on the written product. You'll interview people, right? But it just strikes me that when we're talking about engaging the public, the ability to listen, the ability to have empathy are probably more important than anything they write. So I'm just hoping that that will be a large part of how the people are selected.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Yes, indeed, you have worked very hard and you've done everything you could to answer our questions, and you've been here for us. And I think there were a couple times that we've experienced as our group. There was a little debacle about where some of the money was going, and it was kind of not transparent. And then it was a little embarrassing, I think, for everybody concerned. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the community sees this if they want to see it. And if they're interested in looking, we want to be able to have something to present to them. And we, as the Community Advisory Committee, are very interested in helping. I think that the transparency thing is the only thing at this point that we're kind of like, who's going to be chosen and what are the criteria and who's been involved. And I know you've answered the majority of those questions, and I think it's not necessarily what your process is right now, that you've already kind of moved along in the process and you've done a great job. I think it's going to be in the processes that are forthcoming, in the bigger plans, that we want to be heard as the Community Advisory Committee. We want to be involved. That's what we're here for. We're not here to get free food and enjoy each other's company, which is what we're doing right now. And so this is what we're here for. And I think that's what we're saying.
Thank you.
Cynthia?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of comments. One, I would like to see perhaps a member of the CAC be part of the review process for the RFPs. Perhaps they don't have to be a voting member, but I think I would like to see somebody from this committee to participate in the RFP. So that, I know that the selected the selected group is going to be speaking to the community in general, but I think it's important to have somebody from this committee also. Secondly, on the current committed roadmap of programs, I think this is good. But for a member of the public that perhaps is not familiar with these programs, I wonder if, we could either put something in the bottom where we have a sentence or two about what the program does. Maybe a little bit more, like a little, just a little bit more, just descriptions of what our current committed programs are. And overall, I think you've spent obviously a lot of time and listened. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of Mid-Town, please, you have the mic.
Yeah, and it's, I think it'll be, hope you'll get good support for public engagement. I have two questions. Is this we already have a portfolio of programs. Are we looking at revamping them completely, or are we evaluating the success of that and then stepping forward? Or how do you plan to approach it, given that you have already experience with running these programs?
So we have as indicated by the reference slide that member Landry was talking about, it's number 10 in the deck. It's part of the reference materials that went to the executive committee in July. You can see that come 2027, even in 2026, things start to drop out as programs finish up, or at least their initial pilot finishes up. And so we do have programs that continue on beyond that time frame, but there is sort of more capacity available. Thank you, Adrian, in 2027. And so we want to be very thoughtful about what we bring on next there. And then that time frame is basically 2027 through 2032. But things like Ava Charge, which is our network of public DC fast chargers, the contracts we enter into are 10-year agreements. We expect to be installing new charging stations through 2027. So that goes out to like 2037. CMF is our critical municipal facilities. Those are 25-year power purchase agreements for solar and storage on public buildings. And so that one, those are going to be installed by April of next year. So those go out into 2051. The solar and storage program, which has recently been internally branded as Smart Home Battery, that is expected to enroll for 10 years, have incentives. I'm sorry, enroll for 5 years, incentives for another 5 years. And so that takes us to 2035. And so we're not proposing to remove those programs that sort of have that longer tail, but we want to be thoughtful about how we are filling in sort of the white spaces in this committed programs roadmap.
Good, thank you. I have one other follow-up question, if I may. Is there any quantitative, because bang for the buck kind of in terms of greenhouse gas reduction, any quantitative element of the analysis?
We are certainly interested in a quantitative analysis because on one hand, we want to be financially responsible as an agency. We are looking to see what kind of impact some of the different investments have on our responsibilities as a load-serving entities. So things like virtual power plants that can reduce our peak load, which is when the power is most expensive. There is a benefit to AVA as a load-serving entity, but not every program is going to be held to the same sort of standard because we are a public agency. So we know that there are going to be certain programs like direct install programs where you're paying for the entirety of an upgrade for maybe a low-income household. Those are not going to have the same, overall like cost effectiveness as others, which is why we want to look at this as a portfolio to make sure that we have a balance.
Good, very good. Thank you.
Just for my comments, and we'll go to public comment after that. I think I second Member Landry's comments about getting us involved in the RFP sort of selection. I'm not sure how that would look like, what kind of ideas that could engage us. I don't know if it'd be more in the public open setting or a small group, maybe ad hoc LDVP or some members who raise their hand, have the time to meet with staff virtually or any kind of combination. I understand that information would be somewhat privileged because you work through who it can offer what options the best. So maybe just going back to evaluate what is the process that could further engage the CAC or a subset members of CAC in the selection of the consultant, so they can maybe give you some feedback or thoughts that maybe improve the overall result of this process and get the engagement early on from this committee, possibly. And we'll see how maybe that could be something that this committee can be supportive of. And then when it comes forward with the recommendation, then you have unanimous support for the board as well to hear like, yeah, we were engaged, we really like this consultant. They made some minor tweaks based on the conversations that the CAC had and really support it 100%. And if we feel really confident this consulting can really lead the effort in the community in partnership and really make sure we get the responses we need. So I think that may be a good opportunity to see if that's something that your team can do.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if I followed this point in particular, but you said something about a public process. So we can't divulge like who the bidders are
No,
before
that's
there
why
is
these
a
become,
selection.
whatever you can do to best manage that involvement from the CAC. So when it comes to the public, again, with the selection of the consultant, then you
Mhm.
have this body fully on board. So somehow you can figure out how you can maybe identify who is best suited to give you feedback. Maybe it's one or two people in your process to evaluate the consultant, knowing it's confidential and privilege. It has to be respected as you work through that process, but maybe bringing this in and somehow in the conversation.
Yeah, I understand and appreciate the request, but it is not part of our process right now to bring a CAC member into the selection committee.
Understood. I think this is what the CAC would like to see though.
Understood.
Thank you. I will take some public comment from that conversation, this presentation. Is there any in the room? Jessica?
Yeah, I actually wanted to speak to that point. Earlier on in this inception of the agency, we always had somebody from the community in the CAC be part of the hiring of the CEO or also the hiring of contractors. It doesn't mean the entire CAC is on there, but at least a member of the CAC with the rest of the board members. So I wanted to add that and just, you know, kind of reiterate maybe some of my comments on the issue about the roadmap is that we really value the local development business plan and that it was, you know, it really was labor and our environmental organizations that came together to ensure that that we get a plan for how to build investments and create jobs and create benefits in the community, and that that's still valid. And even though the plan is old, it's been really the foundation that influenced some of the programs that this agency has launched, but others as well, other agencies, which is a huge deal. And it cost $500,000. And from what I saw in the budget, it looks like that's what's being paid potentially to a contractor. So I just want to say it's still very relevant, even though it's an old document, it's still very relevant. There's still a lot of things that this agency could explore. I want to make sure that we all have a say in that we're heard actively. And so going back to my earlier comments, I'm just concerned that somehow things are being scaled back, including, you know, our voices. And I'm really concerned about that. That's it.
Thank you. Another public comment? Yes. Hey, Analuia, our past chair. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anna Olivia Eldred. I'm here as a member of the public and an enthusiastic community energy person. I don't know everyone, but I was the founding chair of EBCE, now AVA. I got to participate in quite a lot of the different events, and it's really awesome to see our amazing staff. They're really incredible. I was the person who sat on many of the committees, not the only person depending on the committee, but I was the person who sat on the committee, and I know for sure that I sat in on almost every single stage of the local development business plan, because we had clear direction from the board that the idea of local development was fundamental to East Bay Community Energy and is still fundamental to Ava Community Energy, community being us, right? So I really want to support the comments that have been made around not only having historical precedent for having a CAC member as part of the process, but the fundamental importance of having that view. Our staff is so talented and they're so dedicated and they are subject matter experts. And our CAC is too. We are experts in the needs of our community, right? So I just really want to hold that up and respect the process that's happening and encourage the inclusion of a member of the CAC. I also was thrilled to see a roadmap being brought forth. It is essential that we plan for all the different things that are coming. I do believe that local development should be part of a strategic roadmap for our community. Like we need to take a look at all kinds of different things. And one of those things like energy and security and the blackouts and brownouts and all those kinds of things, rising costs and how we address our expanding territory and the needs of rural communities that are not the same as the needs of some of the urban centers. And so just making sure that we have the community voices who are also experts and not just the fantastically talented staff that we have. This is an additive process. The last point here, because 30 seconds, is that this is very clear in listing decarbonization as the primary goal. And I just want to kind of take a step back from that. The legislation that we had to pass in order to found community choice as an option in California was for affordability. That is the founding legislation. It is the #1 priority. And not all of our communities share the primary goal of decarbonization. It's super important. It's mine, but there are other goals, and I just want that to be part of the roadmap too. So thank you so much, and it's really nice to see everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yes, good evening. I'm Tim Frank, and I'm representing the CCA Workforce and Environmental Justice Alliance. We've worked with you before and really appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. I'd like to echo the comments that we've already heard, but then also to suggest that in addition, when we're looking at the question of decarbonization, it's important to recognize that this is very much an emerging market and is rapidly evolving. And a lot of the experience that we hope to see eventually brought to bear on this question and actually doing decarbonization at scale in a way that is affordable and that is using high road labor practices to actually deliver a high quality result for households, low income, medium income, and upper income alike. That experience doesn't yet exist. There really aren't implementers anywhere in the country that have developed the full array of strategies to actually do that. And any implementer that tells you that they've mastered this is really not being honest with you. So what it requires at this point is some investment in experimentation, in doing pilots. And this is going to require a bunch of experience from a variety of different stakeholders. And when I look at the question of your roadmap, I want to make sure that there is appropriate input given not only in stakeholder engagement around essentially program design questions, but also looking at the market analysis. Because a lot of the folks who've been working on this, if you look at the scope that you're suggesting people bid on right now, it's a very broad scope, which is going to generally tend to favor fairly large consulting firms. Some of the big international firms, but they may not have the experience to actually develop programs that are oriented around being labor friendly and creating high road jobs. And I would recommend that you think about suggesting that one of the areas where they could do subcontracting to bring in the experienced folks that actually are labor friendly and doing market analysis that could help you with that process. that might actually make it easier for them to bid the work, but then be able to tap the expertise that's needed to actually do it in a way that is friendly to the values of this board and this agency. It's the kind of practice you might want to go to the UC Labor Center to do, but my guess is it would be difficult to get them to bid this because of the whole challenge of their, the bureaucratic challenge that they face in bidding on public projects like this. They tend to like big projects. If they're going to have a piece of it, it needs to be big. But there's a diaspora of folks that have graduated from that program that are available as consultants to do pieces that could get plugged into a program, and finding a way to play a matchmaker role with some of those the bidders with some of these experienced people, I think would be a smart thing for you to do, and we would love to see that happen.
Thank you.
And we're here to be of service too. So thank you.
Thank you. Another speaker in the room?
Hi, it's really nice to meet everyone. My name is Do-hee Kim, and I'm with the Local Clean Energy Alliance as a new campaign organizer. And it's really humbling to meet everyone from the CAC to staff members who've been working hard on this clearly, and with public commenters who have been part of the history of Ava Community Energy, which used to be known as EBCE. So you might have read the public comment letter that our team and I submitted on behalf of Local Clean Energy Alliance in response to this customer roadmap, strategic roadmap. And I just wanted to uplift first the staff comments of what creates community buy-in. And I think a lot of the terminology around market assessment is sometimes difficult to engage as someone who's lived in Berkeley for the past 9 years. Also appreciating the work of Ava Community Energy is, what does market assessment and affordability really mean when there hasn't been a clear kind of outline of community engagement? I think there's a lot of appetite from the ad hoc community advisory committee of wanting to include community voices, community expertise from someone who has been engaged and involved. And I also wanted to uplift that the local development business plan has also very high level understanding of kind of the objectives that we're trying to get with this roadmap until 2032 is quite a long time. And to leave it at such an abstract level without having a consultant maybe consider surveys on what customers really want in that roadmap. How do you create that buy-in? What do customers really need in terms of affordability? How do you ensure that the customers are shaping the portfolio priorities? Like, are you working with DACs? Are you working with low-income communities that aren't included in Cal Enviro Screen 4.0? Are you including customers who really don't have a high literacy of energy? And I think it can be intimidating for a lot of public members to even submit a letter or engage, because there's not, when we talk about market assessment, it's not contextualized. So and I remember from your presentation, Annie, that was really helpful, is that, the first part of the September process is like, the Tiger team, the staff team is going to vet the consultant. But I think if you want to create a customer roadmap that's going to impact the buy-in, the customers, the equity aspect, then you would want a consultant that can really talk to the people, engage with them, really break down those high-level market concepts into simpler terms. So I think that also is in alignment with the LDBP. So thanks for your work.
Thank you. I guess those are all the public comments in the room and online.
Yes, Bradley Cleveland, recognized for 3 minutes. Bradley Cleveland, you recognized for 3 minutes.
Sorry, it took me a minute to get to unmute. Bradley Cleveland. Assume you hear me now. I'm a Oakland resident and consultant with IBEW Local 595, the Electrical Workers Union. And I just want to say that we look forward to working with staff and board members and the consultant on the roadmap and appreciate how thoughtful the RFP and problem statement are. And also heard your commitment to a robust community and stakeholder engagement, and look forward to participating in that in the coming months. I have a couple specific comments. One is that we ask that you embed labor standards in all the programs that you design, building really on the workforce and environmental justice procurement standard that the board of directors adopted in early 2024, I believe. And of course, we're willing to work with you, look forward to working with you on those standards. Second is I encourage you to continue to invest in proven programs such as the Critical Municipal Facilities Program and the Resilience Hub programs that's still being developed, and apply some of those lessons to the work moving forward. Here I'm thinking about the practices such as aggregating projects to achieve economies of scale and efficiently deploy workforce as you move forward. And finally, leverage AVA's investments to maximize state and federal matching funds. We understand that there's still direct pay for government and nonprofits can still access direct pay. And then there's also still the federal tax credit for battery storage. And on the state level, there's a number of programs such as the EV charging, resilience hubs, virtual power plants, equitable building, decarb, and those kind of programs. It'd be possible to leverage local investments and match state and federal funds. Those are my comments. I really appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
And there are no further hands raised at this time.
Thank you very much. All right, so any other comments from the committee? Well, again, I want to bolster the interests of the Community Advisory Committee to be involved in the selection of the consultant and be further involved in input and direction of how this roadmap's developed. If that past president has been there, I will bring it up again in our board meeting on Wednesday to further emphasize the need to have a CAC member at the table for this dialogue and discussion about the consultant that is selected. Thank you, Andy. With that, we'll move on to the next item, which is where are we at? The Rate Stabilization Fund Policy. This is going to be a board action item. Are we?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Oh, wait, what's that? 1 second, please. Hold on. Did you want? Oh, you can fit now if you want. No, you want popular. Okay, so 1 second. My apologies. Let's go back to the item. I think Member Lutz wanted to give some comments as well about from the ad hoc. So we can, well, that's towards the end, but we can also. Do you want to speak to those comments now, or do you want to just speak to your concerns around the process?
Well, summarize the general concerns.
Okay, so we'll bring the microphone over.
Right. And a lot of the concerns we've already heard, so I'm just going to mention them again. That this is just a local programs roadmap, and that that's very important and it's good, and it's nice to see a thorough RFP on that. But there's much more that AVA does, and there should be a strategic roadmap process on that and how to make those synergies between commodity purchases and local development. Also, the concerns about the primary, initially when it was presented, it was decarbonization is the primary goal. I think it's clear now that anything AVA does has to cover lots of goals. There's been a lot of discussion on getting early and meaningful community engagement. So that was another one of our concerns. And getting the board and the CAC engagement in the process. And I did have a motion to make And I don't know if it's appropriate to make it or not.
Well, let's work through that process. So first of all, my apologies. I don't see the ad hoc item for committees to present on the agenda. We're going to carry it here. We're having discussion of the roadmap. And so my apologies. I think that was an oversight not having the report out. Adrian,
We were going to include, there was not a report for the second item, I believe, and so we did not include the ad hoc committee report on the agenda.
Normally the ad hoc committee sort of positions like standing ad hoc committee reports on the agenda, so that I expect it to still be there towards the end in case we had the other marketing one.
Yeah, I think we didn't add it this month just because we had so many items. We still have two very big kind of meaty items to dive into. So I believe that's why it's not on there.
Right, so I understand that Jim has a motion, but there's a process to make a motion.
Yes.
Do you want to speak a bit in summary to the motion, Jim, Member Lutz? And then we can go through that process if we get interest to make the formal motion.
Can I explain?
Yeah, I will, if you want to explain it further, Adrian, well, 1 second, let me manage this. So if you want to make a motion, why don't you speak to what you're interested in making the motion about, and then we'll go through the procedural process to get that supported by the committee.
Okay, the four parts of the motion were to ask the board to direct staff to undertake a similar roadmap process for the entirety of AVA's operation and a strategic planning to address regulatory, legislative, market, and technological opportunities and risks to AVA Community Energy that are going to be happening in the next 5-10 years. And that's not a small task, and I certainly understand it, but to keep AVA healthy and alive, I think there has to be a process for AVA to develop a roadmap to prepare for that. The other three were somewhat already covered in the comments, so I don't know if they need a separate motion or not. It was make sure that the public workshops or public engagement are early in the process for the market assessment, the program concepts development, and the program metrics development tasks, because those are how the roadmap will be developed, and you need it, and key aspects of it, and we should get meaningful community engagement early. The other was already addressed, was make sure the workshops are geographically spread out over AVA territory, because we're huge now. And then the other was already addressed as having selected board or CAC members in the review and selection of the consultant process. So I don't know if those are.
So there's a format and process, I understand, since the agenda was already published on Friday, and then there was further dialogue on Saturday over the weekend that we couldn't really move an item through the chair's report. It has to be somewhat separate. So to Adrian's direction, I understand we need to make a majority vote to take on the board action, 2/3. Do you want to speak to it?
Yes, in order to add an item to the agenda after the agenda has been posted, a 2/3 vote of the assembly is required. With the passage of that vote, then we can vote. The item can be added to the agenda and actually voted upon. So we have 9 people, 2/3, yes. So there are 9 members present. A vote of 6 would move the item forward.
So, and to summarize, what is the item that we want to add to the agenda for a vote today? So the items, if you can, so the items to summarize is more around what's the agenda item you want to vote on, Jim, now? Do you want to summarize that more briefly?
What do you add?
So what we're looking to, so Jim is asking to bring an agenda item to a vote for recommendation to the
ad
board.
hoc committee that didn't get on the agenda, but has been discussed
No, go ahead.
thoroughly in this discussion on the roadmap, because a lot of what I was hoping to bring as a motion were items that were already discussed.
So we're voting to put this on the agenda.
We're voting to have an item on an action item by the committee for it to be voted on. And then really just summarizing the motion that Jim's looking for is a recommendation, or at least an action item around the risk Ava has, the roadmap, engagement, and, ensuring some of the selection process with the consultant is included with the CAC member at that high level. But I want to go to Vice Chair. Go ahead.
I hear the number of additions that we want to make to the process, or propose to make to the process. I believe that there's two ways of approaching it. One is that we can try and get all of that into the process. The most important one, I feel, is that the CAC should be involved. And I would like to propose that our vote would either be on option one, which would be to focus on asking the board if we can have a say, or be given the option to be involved. Or we can go for the whole kit and caboodle and say, let's go for it and have all kinds of engagement involved. So I think we need to think about that. I leave that to Jim though.
It's an open dialogue for this to discuss. If we want to make an action item, we would go through that process. I just want to make sure if we're going to have an action item that we have it defined there so we can make that action.
I'm leaving that to Jim.
Yes, and I'm looking around the room for other comments from members. Indra.
So the RFP's already been issued. So the first part of your proposal, I think the other three, it makes sense to add it, but I don't understand how they can't retract the RFP once it's out. So to include all of the additional, do an additional roadmap. Okay, I understand.
Cynthia.
I would like to make a motion to add
We'll work, let her make the idea and then work through the process. Go ahead, Cynthia.
The LDPP ad hoc committee.
I would like to add to the.
Cynthia, could you speak into the microphone? please?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, everyone. Okay, I am going to make a motion to add to tonight's agenda the subcommittee, the LDP, that's a letter missing here, committee's recommendation as an action item.
I will second that.
So we have a recommendation based on what Jim said, a first and the second. Discussion, please. Peter or Doug?
I feel somewhat.
Okay, so let's recap. There's a first and a second for the LDP's committee's recommendation. What is that recommendation, Jim?
There were 4 items.
So you want to cover 4 items.
One is to ask the board to undertake an additional roadmap process to include other aspects of Ava's operations and strategic plan to address going forward in the regulatory, legislative, market, and technology developments, so that we have a forward-looking plan facing that. The other 3 items were to require public workshops be early in the process laid out in the statement of work for the tasks on market assessment, program concepts, and program metrics. The third one was to require public workshops, public engagement, be dispersed geographically over Ava's territory and virtually accessible.
Pause for a second, please, especially geographically over Ava's territory and virtually. Did you say virtually? Okay, and your fourth?
To include selected board and CAC members in the review and the selection consultant.
Like selected board or CAC members?
Originally, I put in board and CAC, but only select one. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Member Weiner.
Now that I don't feel quite so lost. I understand, as Mickey said, I support having a CAC member be involved in this, and I understand from Annie that currently they are not. And I understand from our former chair that this used to be the case. On the other three items, I have questions for you. One is, I understand you're the customer engagement person, so, or that's your job, and that, or community engagement, and that's why you prepare something that isn't all embracing of every aspect of AVA. Are there other aspects of AVA, other staff members or other forums where the issue of a strategic plan, for example, for purchasing power or things of that sort are worked out? Is there another forum for that?
I'm assuming I should respond to you.
Yes, please.
All
Thank you.
right.
Sorry.
Yes, so I oversee three teams, the local development team, account services and marketing. There are other departments in the agency. There is power resources that is led by a senior VP. And that team is the one responsible for our strategy and planning around power procurement. The strategy that I would point to that frequently goes to the board for a number of items is our carbon-free 100% by 2030. And we report on that regularly to the board, as well as present different options and decisions for the board to weigh in on.
Thank you. Based on that, I don't support asking AVA to expand this particular program. And I think it may already be doing the other strategic plan. So I don't mind saying so, but I think they may already be doing it. And so I'm not sure that we need to recommend it. And on the issue of things, like having workshops in many different areas of the area, I don't know that they're not doing that. And I think it's something we can say to them, but I don't know if it has to be formal. So I think I'd rather focus on having a CAC member involved in the process. I don't know if we need to add an agenda item for that or simply a reaction to the presentation we had. So I don't know that.
Well, we have a first and a second to make the action to accept the LDP's committee's recommendation. If there's a substitute action, that can be made now, or we can call for the vote to see if we make the action to add this item to accept the LDPP committee's recommendation.
Further discussion?
What's this?
Further discussion?
Yes, you may.
So thank you. I appreciate, I believe what you're talking about, which is clarification that what Jim's talking about, which is a plan for.
And we'll have to keep you closer to the mic.
Sure. A plan for all the resources and not just LDVP. I think it would be important to clarify that they're separate. Now, we're not saying like just stop what you're doing and bring in everything else. That wouldn't work. And so I think it would make sense to clarify that. To my understanding, and staff can tell us, I don't think that larger plan is something that's actively being worked on as a cohesive whole, which I think is the point of what you're asking for, a long-term roadmap. And I too would like to see that. Obviously, that would take time. You're doing one thing now, but I would support that process as long as we explicitly say that we're not trying to force it into what's happening now. They're related but separate. And then also I do support having a CAC member participate in the process. And as the calendar of moving this whole process for us with RFP and the consultants and the choice is very accelerated, more accelerated than I think normally I see in public agencies for something like this. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think that this would be our opportunity, opening up the agenda to be able to make a motion to communicate to the board now, because otherwise we're just not gonna have, we're not gonna have like 4 more meetings before that happens. So I would support clarifying that we're not talking about bringing all of the agency's resources under one roadmap. We want to see a roadmap separate. But I would support opening up the agenda to make a motion. And I don't know if we need to have further discussion. Should we agree to open up the agenda? Do we then have more discussion about yes or no, or is all the discussion happening now?
We're just going to add the item and then we can
Okay.
then break it up to
Okay.
what we want to accept, as I understand. So then now, any other discussion around the action to add the item to bring a vote to accept the LDPP's committee's recommendation? On the,
Chair, I have a comment.
yes, Shiva.
I'm with Peter not to mix up the two. I would propose that we have the first motion to involve the CAC member as a separate motion, along with the other 3 as a separate motion. So that we don't mix up the two.
We can separate the motion in our votes once we bring the item to the agenda. So at that point, I can take a motion to either take 1, 2, and 3, and then 4, so we can go through that process. That's
Okay.
acceptable. All right. Yes,
I just
yes.
That's funny. I think it gets confusing because we've been talking about the RFP and now we're talking about the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. And I think they're separate.
Okay.
And I think we need to make sure that's clear.
Yes,
And then-
we need the need for immediate action vote to add the item to the agenda. We're very far into the conversation.
Yes, understood. All right, so I know that part of the problem is that we don't have a separate item for the LDBP, which we're going to cover here partially in the chair report, but also dovetailing into the roadmap. So let's just go through the action to look to accept this recommendation at first and second to add it to the agenda.
Yes, the need for immediate action requires a 2/3 vote.
Yeah, let's
and
do
then
that.
we can proceed to the actual vote.
Sorry, can I just make a quick clarification? Adrian, is this a 2-part process? First
Yes.
is the group has to agree, yes, we want to take immediate action, and then they follow up with a vote on the motion around the recommendations.
Yes, again, the need for immediate action exception to the Brown Act requires a 2/3 vote of the assembly to add the item to the agenda. Then once that is passed, if that passes, we can then vote on the item.
Correct. Let's take a vote. Adrian, vote please.
Okay.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
I apologize. I think that with the need for immediate action, we can just,
No, it's already done. It's already first and second to talk through adding the item to the agenda. With committee recommendation.
hold on one second. So for the need for immediate action, Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Yes.
Member Buxton,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Pacheco,
Yes.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lewis.
Yes, and I want to take responsibility for this confusion because I didn't make it clear when I submitted it to the chair that I wanted an action item.
That's okay.
But that's.
You're forgiven.
Thank you. Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
the need for immediate action exception has been approved.
Okay. So now we have the item that's been approved to make a motion here this evening. The motion presented was to accept the LDPP committee recommendation, ask the board to undertake a separate roadmap process around other aspects, not specifically to the programs, but strategic plan in the regulatory, market, and technology markets, as I understand it. I'll ask Jim to clarify. I just want to read through my notes. Require public workshops early in the process for the statement of work on market assessment, program concept, and program metrics. That specifically, Jim, is that for this strategic roadmap that we're talking about?
Yes.
Strategic roadmap.
Customer programs.
No, and 1 second, please. The third one would be for require public engagement to be dispersed geographically over Ava's territory and virtually. That's also for the strategic program?
It's for the customer programs. roadmap, yes.
Customer programs. I keep mixing up names. And then for the final ones, also to be included in this customer programs roadmap, have a board and CC members or select the members on the strategic roadmap process, the customer program.
Yes. And it might make sense to split these into 4 different motions.
Okay, so we can, okay, and then Vice Chair, you had a comment. No worries, I just want to make
This
sure.
is not mutually exclusive, these two motions, right? These two votes, they're not mutually exclusive. So I mean, if we like the first one and we like the second one, or it's not one against the other.
If we split them, then they wouldn't be separate votes.
Okay.
It will be.
All right, so I'll take a motion for whatever motion you want to make. I'll look to Jim. Jim, what's the first motion you want to make?
Can I?
And Andrea, please.
My clarification is we were talking about this RFP and wanting a CAC person to participate in the process if we could. Does this apply to that? Or is
Yes.
this a completely, okay.
We want to start with that.
We'll start with that. I
Okay.
will make a motion that the CEC request the board to include selected board and CAC members in the review and selection of the consultant in the RFP, the customer programs RFP process.
All right, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Member Ernesto Pacheco, I'm going by Ernesto because I'm reading it out loud. Okay, any other discussion on this from the board? Member Shiva, Sumirtan, I see your hand raised.
Sorry, that was from a previous time.
All right, thank you. No worries. I will. Member Pacheco?
Very brief comment. I think I told this story last.
One
meeting.
second, let's do, before we make a comment, we have a first and second. I want to pause there for any kind of clarification on the item.
Oh, I
and then
apologize. I
go
thought you were
to- no
discussion.
worries. No discussion. I want to go with public comment first. If there's any public comment on the item that we're talking through, to have have the board.
We have a
to-
public comment.
Yes, I know. I'm just repeating. To include a board and CC members in the review selection of RFP selected members of the customer roadmap. So have inclusion. All right, now we'll go to public comment.
Hi, all. Thank you so much for adding this item. I just really want to encourage the inclusion of this in particular as it is hard to have enough perspective on something to be meaningful when it comes to community engagement. And the people on this body have spent real time, have invested energy and developed expertise on what the community needs in this process. And it would be a real loss not to have it. I sit on the MTC, Metropolitan Transportation Commission Advisory Board. I sit on the body that's looking at tolls on bridges. I sit on a whole bunch of different bodies, and they are desperate for advisory committee involvement and to increase public engagement. So as a quasi-governmental body, I encourage you to embrace every level of engagement, especially from willing, knowledgeable folks. So thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Adrian?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. I'll go to Member Pacheco for any kind of comments.
Sure. So, as for the motion for having a board member and a CAC member be part of the process, like I said, I told the story last time, but I'll just say again that during the formation and when the agency was originally choosing its consultants, and I happened to be on a couple of the interview committees. And I just know it was burned into me. We were on the verge of supporting a respondent who, because there was someone from labor sitting there and explicitly asked, do you commit to being neutral if your employees wanted to organize? And they explicitly said, no, I won't. It was not a question the staff would have asked. And otherwise we would have gotten an anti-union contractor for years during the formation. So that just like burns me like one specific example why it's good to have more than just wonderful staff in it. So I can bring in a couple of perspectives, and I'll stop there.
Other comments? Again, I'm looking through, remember Lutz's Word document says to include selected board and CC members in the review and selection of the consultant in the RFP process that we went over earlier, which is the customer programs.
All right.
Okay. Any dialogue? I will call for a vote.
Great, thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Weiner.
Yes.
Member Buxton.
Yes.
Member Swaminathan.
Yes.
Member Pacheco.
Yes.
Member Harper.
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza.
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you, Jim. Second and third or fourth item. I'm just going through your
I'm going
PDF.
to go through them reverse order.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have the floor, sir.
Okay. We can get it up so I can read it, so I don't stumble through it.
Okay.
Workshops, geographically.
Yeah. Ask the board to require that the public workshops be geographically spread out over Ava territory, including Stockton, Tri-Valley, South County, and North County, and virtually accessible. That's the motion.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Pacheco. So the motion, first and second, ask board to require the public workshops be geographically spread out over Ava territory, including Stockton, Tri-Valley, South County, and North County, and virtually accessible. Or first and second, clarifying questions from the committee? Online, Shiva.
Yes, I have a question for staff. This seems like a thing which the staff would plan to do anyway. Is this redundant, or is that something you need a board direction to undertake? Question for staff.
It is currently not defined to this level of specificity. We very intentionally left it as not indicating what format, such as a workshop, nor did we indicate geographic distribution. We were looking for the proposers to come back to us with their recommendations, and then we were going to review them and evaluate based on those recommendations.
Got it. Thank you. So this is the first of 3 motions to come, is that right?
This is the second motion. I don't know how many more will come.
Okay.
All right, so there's 4 parts possibly to it, but yes. Right.
Just to clear, we had one motion. We
broke up.
did a need for immediate exception to add this item to the agenda, and the motion was split into 4 parts. That's what my understanding was.
That's understandable. We'll see if all 4 parts are raised. Let's see, first, second. Comments?
comment?
Yes, clarify.
I like, Annie, what you said, and I feel like, just kind of, seeing the way that people in different parts of our area operate, I think if we have a consultant that understands that, that's really good criteria to evaluate them. I think by us defining it sort of ad hoc like we're doing, I don't know that I think that's as useful. Just my opinion. Although I believe in equity and being fair, but I think the criteria would be something they would be able to evaluate, I think.
So I'm sorry, I need to clarify. You're saying it's a good thing or a bad thing to have this clarification?
I think it's unnecessary based on what Annie said.
It's not defined at the moment. So that's the thing. Now we'll be defining what we want to see, because they left it rather vague in the RFP process, even though something you might require.
I just sort of think if you can dilute answers, right? And if this is a high level, not specific. So it seems to me that there could be room for bias in a way, depending on how the RFP is approached. And I think that if there's having myself written RFPs, you have a strategic plan and approach that you're going to take in terms of, do you go to churches? Like some of the things I've done, people won't come. If I say, I want to just do this at, say, a restaurant or something, people won't necessarily come, but you find that if you go to the events like soccer games or things, that is like something you know by knowing which locality you're working in. And I think defining that ourselves seems like it's taking away some of the expertise that perhaps the consultant would offer.
Thank you. Ernie.
So I would say I appreciate Member Bella Kassoon's concern about being overly prescriptive and that being more of staff's area of expertise and whatnot, and not wanting to gum it down with too many micro details. I respect that and I agree. I would just say that with Ava's current service territory being from Fremont and Stockton, such a huge area, geographical area and even cultural area, that I think that this is one thing that's of such important that I think it makes sense to clarify. I don't think it's a micro detail. I think it's like a fundamental part of whether or not the community outreach is going to be like de minimis. That would be my opinion.
That de minimis is a concern. I agree.
I'm gonna go online back to Shiva and we'll come back to public comment shortly.
Yeah, I feel like we are trying to micromanage staff, the expertise, so I'll probably be voting against it, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. Public comment. And Olivia.
Thank you. So I really appreciated hearing that this was one of the concerns. So as a historical perspective, when we did the RFP for the local development business plan, the consultant that was hired stressed to the CAC and the board the essential aspect of requiring that everything be done geographically. And after participating in those presentations, because we went to every one of them, it was incredible how many folks were only willing to show up in person. They find the internet interface cold, intimidating. They don't have internet access. The Zoom is weird, and it is, but they would show up in their neighborhood. And after seeing the astounding response to that process, the CAC changed our meetings so that we used to go to each of our communities. Our meetings rotated and we went to each of the different sectors and then did a different city, if possible, in those sectors each time so that local folks could actually come. And that was lost during COVID. And now, like, I invited people tonight, but they didn't come because all the meetings are in Oakland, right? So I would really encourage that we provide an opportunity for folks not to have to drive 3 hours if they want to participate, or have a strong internet connection at home, or own a computer, or be able to watch YouTube. Like, that isn't something that is accessible to all people. And having something in the communities where we're going to be serving folks seems like a really basic way to do it. What that looks like, that is where you start evaluating. I also write RFPs for the county. So that's where you start evaluating their responses, but knowing that it's going to be a requirement to actually do something in Stockton and not just kick it in Oakland, I think is a really important thing for people to understand when they're preparing their responses, because it allows them to respond more directly to the needs of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Jim, please. Now we can have further dialogue within the committee, then we'll go back to Shiva, and I want to have a clarifying thing with our clerk.
I want to make a friendly amendment to my own motion.
It's your motion, so you can do so, please.
I had said public workshops be geographically spread, and I want to change that to public engagement to make it clear that it's not just workshops.
How's the seconder friendly to the amendment?
Second that.
Thank you. And then to clarify, based on the communication I received, so we had the action for immediate action was to accept the LDPP committee's recommendation. There's 4 of them. It looks like we're breaking them out. So I think it's okay under the one action that the recommendations were for. We're voting on them separately.
Absolutely.
So thank you. Okay, so we're looking at the third, we're going reverse. So the third recommendation, which is right now being discussed secondly, asks the board to require the public engagement be geographically spread out over AVA territory, including Stockton, Tri-Valley, Stock County, and North County, and virtually accessible. Correct?
Yeah.
Correct? Any other discussion? I will go for a roll call vote, please.
Great, thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Weiner.
Yes.
Member Volkerson.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah, say it.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Member Swaminathan.
No.
Member Pacheco. Member Harper.
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza.
I need more information. I'm going to abstain as well.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you very much. And Jim, you had the second item, or the third item, excuse me, about public workshops, early and strategic programs roadmap. Or do you want to discuss that further?
So, well, I need to make my.
Yes, please. I just want to make sure that's the one we're covering.
Okay. Require that public engagement proceed. Well, I'm going to rewrite it.
That's what I thought.
Require public engagement be early in each of the RFP tasks, market assessment, program concepts development, and programs metrics development task listed in the scope of work for the customer programs roadmap.
One more time, please.
Require public engagements be early in each of those three tasks. In the tasks of market assessment, program concepts development, program metrics development tasks in the scope of work.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you. Clarification by the committee? Hands raised, no clarification, public comment.
I'm sorry, real quick, can I ask a clarifying question on the distinction between the last motion and this motion? I think I'm getting a little mixed up.
Thank you for that clarification request. Jim, please clarify.
This is about the timing, not about the location of the workshops. Or whatever the public engagement is, that the public be engaged early in those tasks.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Public comment.
Hi again, I missed you. So the reason I think this one is important is because several years ago, members of this committee, Jim in particular, met with all of our participating cities and the sustainability staff for each of the cities. And the number one piece of feedback they had was we couldn't take advantage of the programs because we weren't consulted early enough. We were asked what color to paint it or what we wanted it to be marketed as, but not how it should be built. So the cities couldn't take advantage of it with their budget cycles. So even if they could use the programs, they couldn't get it onto their budget to be able to actually participate in the program. Or the city is quite small. They don't have new construction. They're really looking at existing housing. And so the program was developed only to address new construction and not existing things. So whole cities were left out of that. And a conversation early on would have just given staff the information they needed to use their expertise to develop things because they're brilliant and they develop great things. And the individual needs of each of these places is something that should be brought in early so they have the information to develop what they need. That's all.
Thank you. Comments? Seeing no hands raised in the room or remotely. Adrian, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Oh, we do have one.
We do, there you go. Shiva, I was going to go 3, 2, 1 next time. Go ahead, Shiva.
Yeah, again, the same comment. If you get into micromanaging staff, I think we'll end up taking much of our time micromanaging staff, so probably be voting no on this as well. Wanted to explain.
Thank you. 3, 2, 1. All right. Roll call vote, please.
My apologies. The first and the second, please remind me.
First and second.
And Buxton. Great, thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Weiner.
Yes.
Member Buxton.
Yes.
Member Swaminathan.
No.
Okay, thank you. Member Pacheco.
Yes.
Member Harper.
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza.
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. And the fourth part of this motion or recommendation?
I'll read what I wrote. It may not be appropriate and may not be succinct enough, but to undertake an additional roadmap process with early meaningful community engagement to include A, the entirety of Ava's operations, and B, strategic plans to address regulatory, legislative, market, and technological opportunities, as well as risks to Ava Community Energy.
Thank you. Clarifying questions from the committee?
We need a second thing.
We do need a second. A second?
Also.
Member Landry, seconds. Now we can get clarifying questions. Thank you. Shiva, no, hand down. I just want to clarify, let's see, one thing. Okay, so is there a time on this goal? When should they work on this additional roadmap?
No, it's big. So I didn't want to restrict to the time.
Well, when should they start it? Do you have any recommendations when she started evaluating that? Or is it just something you want to see action on?
Could I just make a suggestion? Could we table this for the next meeting? Because this is a big topic.
We can.
And we have a lot of stuff to go through.
Okay, so we have a first and second after picking a potential tabling motion. Tabling, that would be a substitute motion, I think.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I just want to clarify what we're asking. So if there's a second to table this,
I would second that substitute motion to table.
we have a second.
Information here.
Thanks, Dave.
Perfect, thank you. All right, Member Harper was a second. All right, so now there's a conversation shifting to tabling this item because it's the bigger item. Clarification on that substitute motion. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, I'll clarify.
Yes, please.
I think that the ad hoc committee has done a lot of work and a lot of thought has gone into this. And I'd really like to hear more about your discussions and what you were thinking about each of these individual items in the motion. Because they seem very important and I feel like they're getting caught up in the RFP that we're talking about right now, and I'd really like to focus on this.
I would bolster that comment. If you can do a deeper dive and add it to the agenda for the next meeting, I think that'll be helpful. I will take any other, yes, understood. So we're gonna go to public comment in 1 second. Just want to make sure any other clarifying questions are addressed. Public comment.
Thank you. And to clarify, this is public comment on the substitute motion, is that correct?
Yes, but you can say whatever you want.
I'm going to do it on the substitute motion because if you go back to the original motion, I'll have a different comment.
Okay.
Thank you. The board is this is an action item for the board, right?
No, wait.
It would be a
The
recommendation.
RFP is an action item for the board?
This is.
Nope.
No, the RFP to Annie.
The need for immediate action was to vote on Member Lutz's letter with certain recommendations that we would take to the board. This is separate from the RFP.
Okay.
Can I clarify? Are you asking, is this an action item on the board meeting later this week?
So this is the items inside of the recommendation that's coming from the subcommittee or the ad hoc committee. Are a reflection, are they a reflection of an action item that will be on the board's agenda on Wednesday? Great, then I don't have that was my clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Roll call vote, please. Table
Great,
this
thank you.
motion.
This is on
Table.
the substitute motion to table
Yes.
To the next meeting.
to the next meeting. And remind me again, the first and the second for this? Or
I think
No,
I'm
on
to
the
table it.
motion.
I made the motion.
The substitute, that's the
Oh, the substitute
Indira
motion?
and Harper.
And Harper.
Soon.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I have it here. Thank you very much. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Weiner.
Yes.
Member Balkison.
Yes.
Member Swaminathan.
Yes.
Member Pacheco.
Yes.
Member Harper.
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza.
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Unanimously approved.
Okay, we are now done with that item, but I'm going to take a 6-minute break. We're going to come back at 8:22. Thank you.
It seems like we're asking these men half million.
Break.
Yeah, he wants. I didn't know he could drink the milk.
Good evening again.
No, well, I mean, part of the reason I guess that.
Thank you. Order in the court. All right, so we're coming back to item C6, the rate stabilization fund policy. This is a board action item. It's to adopt a formal rate stabilization fund policy. Thereafter, there's an item that's also going to be part of action item, that's C7, the allocation of a budget surplus. Approve an allocation of the 2024-25 budget surplus to rate stabilization fund. They've been separated based on the executive committee to separate those two items from the policy to the budget surplus. We'll see if we can get together so we can better act on it and provide any kind of direction or support to the board of directors. So with that, Adrian, who's presenting the item?
CFO Mills.
He keeps promoting people. This is
Right, and keep on promoting people.
Yes,
CFO Mills.
how are you? I'm CFO Mills. I will be presenting both of these items, and thanks for that context. Yeah, these went to FAP and XCOM, and I think they wanted us to split these up. So let's jump right into it and tackle the first one, which is the rate stabilization fund policy. I think you go to the first slide, Adrian. So as you recall, we've been talking a lot about rate stabilization throughout the year as regulatory events surrounding PCIA reform have developed, and the effects on AVA's budget results in the 2025-26 budget that were adopted in June, they began materializing, showing that we did need to use some funds to balance the budget. We also presented in July in an informational item about rate stabilization funds that also presented survey information from CCAs and public utilities for best practices. AVA currently maintains what's called a budget stabilization fund. You see rate in parentheses. We are looking to change the title. That was established in 2020, intended to create a more stable short-term financial position by deferring revenue in years when financial results are strong and to be recognized in years when financial results may be negatively impacted by certain things such as regulatory events and PCIA and the like. This works together with the other financial resources to mitigate all the financial risks related to energy market volatility, extreme events, and regulatory changes that I talked about that we have to operate through as a load-serving entity in California. So staff recognizing no policy was created back in 2020 when the resolution was passed. We will be recommending that AVA formally adopt a rate stabilization policy and to align with industry norm naming conventions to rename and refer to the fund as the Rate Stabilization Fund going forward. Next slide. The benefits from having a rate stabilization fund are important to AVA and its customers. It stabilizes rates and protects the value proposition. Counterparties also view it as a credit positive and can provide more favorable terms and flexible covenants within any operating agreements that we enter into to procure power and other financial agreements. The fund is part of our financial resource waterfall, which is listed here, and it supports our strong A rating. You see there on the table in blue, it is the next level of resources after our working capital that we would utilize before using our credit facility or reserves and help smooth out any cash flow issues during challenging budget cycles. Next slide. We thought it a good idea to understand how our current practices compare to others. So staff surveyed 22 public agencies. They're on the right, which many of those are CCAs and then public entities, public utilities, and others. We wanted to discover how many have an RSF or a rate stabilization fund and how it integrates with reserves. We also wanted to compare fund sizing and how other similar companies best utilize as far as triggers and discretion for utilizing the funds. Next slide. Some of the results of the survey, and we did present this data in July to the board. We had about 27% had a separately outlined RSF policy, mostly the larger entities. As far as sizing, which is something Ava doesn't have in its board resolution as of yet, because it's intermingled with other reserves. We had 4 respondents that set RSF levels as a percent of O&M, and then 2 that set levels as a percent of expected gross revenues. So 15 to 20% is the typical size. And then 15 or almost 3/4 of the respondents discussed using reserves for rate stability, all of which had similar withdrawal restrictions as their operating reserves. And then a little more than half, 8 of 15, are similar to AVA in that the utilization is at the CEO's discretion, while 4 require board approval and 3 didn't really specify. 1 entity grants the CEO unlimited use of reserves to maintain the value proposition to PG&E as long as days cash on hand did not fall below 90 days. So 90 days is roughly 3 months or a quarter of a year. Next slide. So this slide summarizes the recommendation. It formalizes the creation of a separate rate stabilization policy and fund. And we feel it makes sense for AVA as we mature. This is consistent with best practices for both CCAs and public utilities, and it provides clarity on how the funds would operate. The policy would continue to its current authorizations for funding and utilization to the CEO and treasurer. We would set funding targets with a 20% of operating expenses target. And it would continue to work complementary to the other levels within the financial waterfall. And it may lead us to refining the reserve targets so that it functions somewhat holistically within those 4 levels in the waterfall discussed earlier. So the intention isn't to, create another equally sized reserve fund, but have a rate stabilization fund, something that would be used in the short term, and we would be able to allocate some of that in when we have a good budget year, and then use it in challenging budget cycles such as the 25-26 cycle, and be able to recognize some of those revenues in the future. So with that, I'll open it up to your discussion.
I'm just going to head and start this party started. Rusty, how does this change from what we had before? I understand the naming convention, but what else is changing?
I don't know that a lot is changing other than separating out the reserve funds, which they have a 50% target, and they are really to be used like an earthquake fund, something that we probably won't touch because you want to maintain a stable balance sheet to be able to operate as a utility in California. But the rate stabilization fund is more of a short-term fund of rate stabilizing revenues that we can actually recognize. We defer those, like say in a year like last year. So I'll talk through it in the next item, but we have a rather large surplus, but we can defer those to another year based on GASB accounting standards. So what it does is set up a separate policy that governs the use of these rate stabilization funds that are separate and apart from our reserves.
And then the other follow-up, the target 20% of operating expenses, how soon do you have to target that 20%? Something you grow into or something you want to do like day one in the next item?
Yeah, I think in the next item, you'll see it. I think we are recommending allocating majority, if not all, of the surplus, and we'll get into that in the next item. But what that'll do, it'll take it up to probably in the 12 to 15% range, so not fully up to the target. But again, you'll see how it works together with the reserves, and the reserves are nowhere near the 50% target as it stands. So we're not looking, as I said, to like make these, 2 separate 50% targets. We want to have them work together. And I think we will be coming to the board with, discussing a fine tuning of what those reserve levels really should be if we're going to have a rate stabilization fund that will be our first line of defense after working capital.
So just understanding what I heard you say, that basically this is more of a short-term fund, stabilizing revenues and defer with large surplus to another year. And it's a separate policy that goes up to 20%. In the next item, you have about 12 to 15% of that funds. You may be recommending there some range of that and ideally you have a subsequent policy in the future to work together with the reserves and this new policy. So I think you're just making some tweaks, how much money is put aside in case of a large emergency, and also to stabilize rates with the value proposition. Is that generally how I'm hearing it?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think we look at protecting the value proposition as a way to differentiate us from PG&E and also be able to provide more affordable power than PG&E can. So setting these aside will allow us to recognize later for challenging budget cycles like the one we're just entering into here, where PCIA reform may negatively impact all CCAs, including AVA, so that we could recognize revenues from a prior year and still maintain that value proposition discount to PG&E.
Thank you. I'm gonna go to member Harper online. Member Harper.
Thanks. I was hoping to just understand a little bit better the difference between the reserve funds and if this impacts any of the other like types of emergencies that reserves are set for. I guess and this is very, very lay interpretation, so appreciate your expertise here. I understand that there was some form of this that was kind of baked into the reserve, and you're setting this aside as its own like specific policy to kind of protect it and codify it as something that basically, yeah, you want to keep rates consistent. I guess I'm trying to understand, like, could you distinguish between when you would lean on a rate stabilization fund as opposed to a reserve fund for? Go ahead.
I think Adrian would be great if you could go back to slide 3. I don't know if you can open that up. And I can just show the waterfall real quick. Again, we have a waterfall, what we call that, which is like the 4 distinct levels for utilizing AVA assets and all financial resources. And those are in blue there. Oh, actually, one back there you go. So those 4 there. So working capital, ongoing operational cash flow, we use those to pay bills. We collect the funds. Those go out. It's just a normal course of operation. Then this sits the next level down. So in years where we're having challenging budget years, which in 2026 should come to fruition with the PCIA reform, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out. We have a couple more months until that is published by the PUC, setting rates for PG&E for 2026. But that in the rate stabilization fund would then be utilized to recognize revenues and keep that value proposition. So we're not burning through all of our cash trying to maintain financial stability, if that makes sense. And I think if we go into the next item, you'll see it a little more. But if you recall in the budget that was just passed, we actually did ask for the ability to recognize up to 35 million that is already in the rate stabilization fund as it stands now, just to get at least to a balanced budget for next year, because we are looking at having some negative cash flow for part of 2026. And what those first 2 are, at least we look at those as short-term fungible cash. We do have 2 other layers, a credit facility, which we post LOCs to operate with counterparties and in markets like the Cal ISO. And then you can draw funds from that if you need to, but that's something we've never had to do, and we really don't want to have to go down that path. That just takes on debt. We do end up having to service that debt and pay it off later. And then all the way at the bottom is the reserve funds. And that's like a financial strength base layer, almost like a disaster earthquake fund. You may not ever really want to test the reasons why you would actually have to utilize those, but it is there. And what it does do is set with counterparties and with rating agencies and investors and credit providers that we have cash available to us, and we have a balance sheet as a going concern, and we have an A rating because we maintain those reserve funds. And this is sort of the maturity of public utilities, so to speak. CCAs are looking more and more like a public utility. However, they have, different, a different operating environment and interfacing with the IOUs. But it is, reserve funds are there as a long-term financial stability mechanism.
Okay, and for the 5-year-olds kind of working example, I'm hearing, so the rate stabilization fund, shorter term, kind of understand the issues a little bit better. PCIA as an example, year to year for stabilizing rates. Reserve funds, you have some major earthquakes and a couple of solar farms go offline. And you need to like enter like rapid power purchase agreements. Is that somewhat like, I guess I'm trying to understand like the scale of like disasters or things that you're trying to hedge against.
Yeah, and I think that it would take probably a whole lot of that, but let's say we did have an earthquake and disrupted service for a couple of months, and our revenue stream was drying up, but we still had to pay for things such as capacity payments that others that we had signed. We could try to go down the force majeure route, but we could also continue trying to operate. So as we would drain through our financial resources, those reserve funds may have to be tapped. Again, these are 100-year events that you would never hope to have to tap into reserve funds. But rate stabilization fund, more fungible. You could see those being utilized a couple of times a decade as at least the CCA environment working with the IOUs and the PCIA mechanism, how that does kind of swing up and down. So we would look to utilize those a little more often.
Makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else online? Shiva?
Yes. I support your recommendation. I have a couple of questions. So the fund is in existence. This time you're trying to provide a 20% ban for that, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a percentage for other funds too? For example, the reserve fund, is there a percentage associated with that? And my second question is, if you run through the rate stabilization reserve, where the rates have to go up, will you be touching the base reserve?
Yeah, I think that's obviously one of the mechanisms, maybe the strongest mechanism we have is to raise rates, right? If we get into a situation where, the choice is drain all the financial reserves or raise rates, that would be something the board would have to decide. But yes, there is a 50% of operating expenditures target on the reserves. Currently, it stands in the high 30% range. And again, next item, we'll be able to see that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members in the room, Member Pacheco.
Thank you. I see from your presentation that your survey shows that there were 4 other agencies that kind of operationally have been RSF at about 20% and 2 that explicitly have it at 20%. But could you just speak for a moment, like why 20%? Like how are we coming at that number, arriving at that number?
Yeah, I think it's the size of Ava's operations. And just looking, the industry standard seems to be in a 15 to 20% range. And, we think operating expenditures are a good thing to use because then it would match the reserves, which are already set at 50% of operating expenditures. So we didn't want to create some different metric for sizing the rate stabilization fund. But I think if you look at it holistically, if we have a 50% target plus the 20% target, that's 70%, but that's roughly 5% less right now than the overall reserve range. So the reserves are set at a 50% target, but they can be anywhere from 25 to 75%. So again, we're trying to stay within, how we are operating currently with, those ranges, but have something that is more defined as a short-term fund to go to in years such as what may be coming up with PCIA reform, where we may be looking at negatively impacted budgets and cash flows that don't match our expenditures so we can recognize revenues at that time.
Okay, thank you. I think I understood just enough of that to say thank you. All right.
Jim, I see your hand up, or Andrew?
I was just in looking at the list of agencies that you surveyed, which were the 4 agencies which one, I mean, a lot of them are, there's a lot of variety. Which were the 4 respondents that did in their O&M budget? Do you know? Were they similar to us?
Yeah, I probably would have to go back and get the data. And I appreciate that question. And I think I will have that on tap for the board just to be able to speak to that. But if I, recall just in going through it with my staff, the larger entities seem to have more of their operating expenditures or revenues. So lean closer to like the 20% range, or don't even have a target at all. So if I look at some of the larger, the LADWPs, some of the larger CCAs like San Diego Community Power, or if you look at SMUD as a public utility, they use more on the revenue side, but they are typically around 20%.
So is there an opportunity cost in this, in terms of, I guess you'll have these 2 funds going back and forth, but I'm just wondering, is it possible that some of them will outweigh the benefits, when you're going back and forth in that list you had of the 4? I mean, I guess I'm asking, what's the downside of this?
As a CFO, I mean, I actually don't see much downside at all. I do think, there is a drag that you can hold too much cash, and I will, explicitly say that, but that's not our intention to create, something larger than necessary. But we do feel like as we get into some challenging budget years, having the ability to take prior years' positive net cash flows and bring them forward and not have to raise rates is a valuable tool for us to protect the value proposition.
So can we look at it like an endowment?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, but it is deferring already recognized or already realized revenues. What we're doing is unrealizing those in a good budget year, like the one we just finished up, and then holding those until a future year. So I don't know if endowment is an exact example of what it looks like.
Okay.
That's helpful. Yeah.
Any other
Thank you.
clarifying
Thank you.
questions? Member Landry.
Yes, I support the concept of a rate stabilization fund. So right now, I guess it's called the GASB 62 fund. And there's approximately, as I understand it, about 35 million. Is that correct? And then,
57, we'll get into the color, but there's a little more than 35, but they are actually already allocated for other purposes, and we'll get into the next item. I'll show that.
And I'm curious, so the 35 million, how much of that, I mean, in terms of the whole global budget for AVA, how much, I mean, what is the global?
About 4.5% to 5% of our budget. It's not a whole lot.
Oh, 4.5% or 5% is 35 million?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Jim?
I guess this is sort of a comment that a rate stabilization fund sounds like you're using it to keep rates from going up. And I guess if you face a bad year, then if you didn't have it, the rates would go up.
Right.
But rates have already been going up a lot. And I've been hearing, from lots of people that the price of electricity is getting way out of hand. Does the rate stabilization fund help that, or this is just keep Ava alive so we can survive to actually bring down rates sometime in the future?
And maybe a little of both. It certainly doesn't have an effect on power markets and the volatility associated with the power markets and the prices that went up for a couple of years. They're now obviously moderating, but rates are going up because there's lots of costs like wildfire mitigation and things like that that are being that are affecting rates in general. But yeah, I would characterize it as a way to keep a value proposition for us, for our customers.
Okay.
We certainly, would like to entertain the idea one day of depegging from PG&E, but again, we're not quite there. And I think right now we can at least offer a 5% discount to PG&E and maybe more in the future. I mean, I think that's having financial resources allows you to look at financial planning in that lens and look for ways to provide value to your customers.
Okay. And then another question, actually referring to something on slide 2, there was a fund that's being renamed rate stabilization.
Yeah.
Was used for the on-bill credits, solar and storage incentive programs, and long-term renewable energy and clean energy storage investments.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like rate stabilization. I mean, it certainly helps smooth out the budgets and ups and downs of Ava, but it's not keeping people's rates up.
Yeah, I think with at least that's uses of the fund. So the mechanism of deferring revenues for rate stabilization, that's one thing we can utilize the fund for. But there are other things that the board has already directed staff to utilize revenues, like defer them into the future for on-bill credits, solar and storage incentive program, and long-term renewable energy and storage investments. So in a way, those are somewhat prepaid, like some of the or pre-collected. So if we have costs for some of the resources that we'd like to do in the future, we could use some of the funds that are already in this rate stabilization fund, or as it exists today, it's a budget stabilization fund. We could utilize some of those already deferred revenues and keep costs lower instead of spending on programs 100% for whatever those costs are. We might have some of the funds on hand already.
So it's yeah, okay. So it seems like it's just another way to keep Ava from facing the heavy, keeping Ava from capsizing in treacherous economic times.
I think the reserves are probably more aligned with that notion versus the rate stabilization fund. And then these other types of funds that we've set aside are more about interfacing with the customer and their costs and trying to keep rates as affordable as we can.
Okay. One other minor comment is, and I hear it a lot, that our value proposition is relative to PG&E's charges. But I just looked at our latest electric bill, and it turns out for our house, our apartment, we're paying 47 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's high. And Ava's only 1/3 of that. And PG&E is the other 2/3. So rates right now, the way things are set up, Ava value proposition is like, oh yeah, we're saving you, 2 or 3 cents. But compared to 45 cents a kilowatt hour, it's such a small number that people don't realize what a good deal they're getting from Ava, because it's such a small. Ava itself is only 1/3 of their electric bill, and yeah, we're cheaper instead of being, I don't know, instead of being 18 cents from PG&E electricity, and actually, no, we're on the renewable 100. So, the 16 cents is compared to the 47 total. It's hard to see that as a value proposition for most customers. So I just want to recommend that you be aware that it sounds, I don't know, condescending to say that that's a value proposition. And I'm not asking you to change anything. I'm just asking you to be aware. People open their electricity bill, they don't really notice how much of it's Ava and how much is PG&E. It's just way too big.
Yeah, understood.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And we're getting towards that 9 o'clock hour. So we still have 2 items, this is formal action and the second item.
Very quickly, sorry. From what I understand too, is this endeavor is going to include policy for this money. So that this is important from what I understand, because I watched the presentation before. This is also policy for how the money is managed, how much power the CEO versus the board and all that. So there's no policy right now for this, and this is part of the endeavor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we recognize that while there is a fund that exists because of prior resolution, there was never a policy created. And the board has adopted like reserve policies and those types of operating policies for staff so that, the customers, the board, everyone understands there's full transparency on how they are working and how they'll work together.
Any other comments? Public comment, if any?
There are no hands raised at the time.
Thank you. And with that, we can take a motion to recommend this policy to the board, if so chosen to do so. The chair will motion, second. Vice Chair. Any other questions, clarifications, comments? That will do a roll call vote.
Great. And the motion being
to accept the staff recommendation to create this policy. Correct?
Thank you very much.
Denise, correct, Mickey? Correct. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Buxton.
Yes.
Member Swaminathan.
Yes.
Member Pacheco.
Yes.
Member Harper.
Yes.
Member Lutz.
No, abstain.
Vice Chair Souza.
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. We'll be jumping item to C7. It was the allocation of a budget surplus. There's also board action item. Approving allocation of 2024-25 budget surplus to the rate stabilization fund that we just created or recommended for approval. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and present this one as well, as soon as Adrian gets it up. Let me go ahead and go to the slide 2. So a little bit of this will look like a repeat of what we just talked about, but the current fund, as noted, was established in 2020 with the objective of deferring revenues for future challenging years. That item we just talked about was to formalize a policy document and change the name. But just one clarification on these funds. All of the funds that are in the current rate stabilization fund as it stands, whether they're for deferral, for stabilizing rates, or for uses such as on-bill credits and solar and storage incentives, they're all held together with our reserves, but they have to be accounted separately from other funds. And that's where the GASB nomenclature came from earlier when the fund was adopted by resolution in 2020. So, with the formalizing of the policy, assuming it's in place, this item here is to talk through what to do with deferred revenue for the fiscal year 24-25 and how to allocate those. So the current balance in the fund is approximately 57.6 million. Up to 35 million can be utilized to balance the current fiscal year budget. And that was passed by the resolution authorizing our budget for this year. We also have about 25 million in total of funds on hand that were approved earlier back in 2023 and 24 for recognition of renewable energy premiums, so the premium cost of renewable energy. We could actually commit 10 million to lower our costs by utilizing some revenues that were collected earlier. So that in itself is almost like a on-bill credit, but not really. It's not on the bill. It's actually just crediting our cost stream, so it keeps our costs lower than they would be. Similarly, for solar and storage incentives, 15 million was approved for recognition at a later date. We are looking at utilizing that 15 million sometime in the next couple of years. Next slide. I think this will show it a little better. And this shows the history of the funds and when it was set up in 2020. In the budget in June, we included the use of deferred revenues to balance our budget. We only had to obviously use the 35 million in total, but there were only 32 million in the funds for rate stabilization specifically. So we did receive authority to contribute 3.2 million from the large surplus in 24-25 to balance our budget. Based on the strong forecasted surplus of a little more than 107 million, we will be recommending to the board to allocate that entire 107 million to the rate stabilization fund. And that will take our funds within the RSF to 129 million at the end of the current fiscal year. Next slide. And this is a very similar slide from the prior item. And again, the RSF stabilizes rates and protects the value proposition understanding. It doesn't look like a lot, but for us, we feel like we want to differentiate ourselves because we can't control 2/3 of what the customers are getting charged. It's also a credit positive and can provide more favorable terms to us to operate. And it's part of that financial resource waterfall, which I hopefully explained in enough of a fashion that it's not too confusing on when we would actually utilize at least the working capital and rate stabilization fund dollars in the short term. And then lastly, last slide, we have the recommended allocation of the budget surplus. We're not at an official point in time to recognize all 107 million, although we do have year-end balances and we can start our audit. It's right in the middle of our year-end audit. So it'll be finalized in the next month or two, and we do project having that 107 million surplus. We did show a couple of allocation scenarios earlier in July, comparing allocating the funds to the budget approved top scenario in the table. We did expand this sum, and this table now shows 4 scenarios where we would defer 80, 90, and 100% of the 107 million to the rate stabilization fund, with the balance to reserves, or in the case of 100%, none to the reserves. And then there's a 4th scenario where we would allocate 90% with a 10% customer credit being available to apply to on-bill credits next year. You can see how each scenario changes the balances in the RSF and the reserves, and then the corresponding percentage of operating expenses that mostly highlight that under all scenarios, we're still under the 50% target prescribed in our reserves, and we'll also be under the 20% target we described in the policy item prior to this. One thing to note is that because of our expansion into San Joaquin County next year, those percentages of operating expenses will decline for both reserves and the RSF, because our total operating costs are going up with the additional load. So allocating most or all of the fund is staff's recommendation due to the forecasted budgetary pressure we may experience from PCIA reform that will be coming in 2026. This will set us up to operate through 2026 in the strongest position that offers us options to address budgetary shortfalls and also continue to provide that 5% discount. And with that, I'll open it up to your discussion and questions.
Thank you very much. I'll take clarifying questions from the committee in the room. Vice Chair, then we'll go to Harper.
So looking at the scenarios, so we have the 100%, everything goes to the RSF to drive up to meet that reserve. And then there's the 90% and 10% reserves and 90% RSF and 10% customer credits and so on. So what I'm wondering, there was a question I heard before about customer credits. How much impact would it be to take all those customer credits, since we give the customer credits because we have additional funds? I'm more inclined to look at that, because if it's going to be something like $15, customer credit, I'd rather kind of still have more for some of the other programs, but I'm just trying to understand a little bit more this breakdown. Thank you.
I think if you look at it, if 10 million was applied only to residential, then each customer would get around $14.75. If the 10 million was only applied to CARE, FARA, then each would get about 64, because there's not that many accounts comparatively. We could also break it up between residential and all other accounts, and it just kind of eats into what residential customers would get. It goes down to about $6. So it's something, but that's where we kind of feel like there's a better use by balancing our budget and not getting rid of the 5% discount. And having those funds on hand to be able to work through PCIA reform is a good use of the cash.
Thank you.
Member Harper.
I had 2 kind of clarifying questions. The first one is, Rusty, you'd mentioned that with San Joaquin County coming into the service, that it's going to increase operating expenses. Wouldn't that be like a short-term issue shouldn't operating revenues be increasing like concurrently with new customers coming online?
Yeah, I mean, that obviously is the case. Like, you'll have, both higher expenditures and higher revenues. And assuming we've budgeted, where we're going to come in, maybe a little bit positive, a little bit negative, whatever that is. But I think the point was that the percentage of operating expenditures will go down. So that we are, if we've got these targets for reserves, while we're getting closer to those targets without San Joaquin, next year, those added costs will cause the percentages to go down. So that we still aren't near our targets, which we would hope to, achieve at some point. But again, we've got to, consider just operating through a couple of fiscal years and, be able to balance budgets and maintain value propositions and all of that.
Yeah. Okay. Then that makes sense to kind of go in with a conservative mindset when upsizing and not assuming like cost savings over time. I think my question is or the other question that I had, sorry, getting late in the night. The other question I had is just confirming, so staff's proposal is to cut all customer credits for this budget cycle, right?
Yeah, we would not allocate any to customer credits for this budget cycle. It's our recommendation.
Gotcha. Okay. To provide some perspective on that, like folks are majorly struggling, and speaking on behalf of Stockton, particularly like Carafera customers, like we've had somehow higher energy costs in a summer that is actually been a lot cooler than even last summer. And I definitely understand like there's constant reports I keep seeing of like the opt-out rates and whatnot, but like something I think is going to give at some point. And if there's a way to preserve even a small percent of customer credits, even just for disadvantaged like Carafera customers, I think that could really go a long way. But just throwing that in as a suggestion to revisit. But otherwise, you are the CFO, and I trust your gut on not taking a conservative like financial policy for rate stabilization.
Yeah, and I think we wanted to put this in our deck here for the board to consider, because hear that loud and clear as well. Again, I'm looking at conservatively as financial planning and wanting to be a going concern, to be around to provide all the great programs that we do and things that we're developing, and hopefully with a growing value proposition. But I think that's great food for thought. I think the board will probably consider that, and certainly will give them that color that I gave you and let them discuss that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Harper. Member Mickelson.
So it's late, so I'm not probably going to be very articulate, but I remember a couple of meetings ago, we were talking about AVA kind of defending itself with the PCIA and with the regulatory people. And I'm not sure where that went, but one of my concerns is that I'm glad we're doing this to protect AVA financially, but I hope there's still going to be another side where we're defending ourselves with, with PG&E making all these moves and kind of putting us at a disadvantage. So I just want to say, I hope we continue to somehow push back on them. The second thing is that I think while we're protecting ourselves, I think because of our mission and our goals, I think we should consider doing the option where we're talking about the customer credits. So I would like to make a motion that we accept this, but recommend that credit, that the staff choose the credits. Is that too many things?
Which are you talking about, credits in general?
So for the options, the staff recommends allocating 100% of the budget, the surplus for the rate stabilization fund. But there was a scenario that said 90% RSF and 10% customer credits.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Oh, yeah, I'll second it.
Stop there for a second, please. I want to get into member discussion about that, but since we have a motion on the table, I can take a comment from a member, a clarifying comment to Rusty, but not speak to the motion, and then we'll go to public comment. Clarifying questions for our CFO?
Well, I'll make it a clarifying question. I do support, a rate stabilization fund. However, I'm not clear that this is 107 million and, I'm not clear, that I want all of it to go to the rate, stabilization fund. And I wonder, if we could consider, using, like 10 million or 15 million to, create, in this, scenario, let me just see if I can, yes, if we could consider another type of fund also, let's see. Yeah, a foundation grant that would benefit nonprofits and other smaller constituents. It's getting late. Yes. Okay, here we are. I would like the CAC to consider a local, supporting local nonprofit organizations, their services, and the communities they serve, which is AVA communities, which would which could, it's late, folks, I'm sorry. This fund is independent and separate from the community grants. And I believe that, this would be called a foundation grant fund for consideration. Anyways, I'd like to see some amount set aside for community nonprofits. Thank you.
Thank you. We can discuss that, maybe a substitute motion or amendment motion, but let's see if you don't mind taking Ernie.
So clarification to Rusty. So I think, so the scenario of 90% and 10% customer credits, that would be a little bit less than 11 million given customer credits, and would put the reserve fund at about 18% instead of 20. Am I thinking about that right?
So, yeah, the rate stabilization fund would get 96 million of the 107. Customer credits would be a little bit less than 11. So it would take our rate stabilization fund to 10% of operating expenditures. So still within, only about halfway.
I was coming up with 18% instead of 20 here, but you're saying 10%. Okay, I'm doing my math wrong. So thank you.
Yeah, we're roughly around 900, like between 850 and 900, I believe, for next year. So in operating expenditures.
If you want to raise it to 20%, is 10% enough of a buffer for the rate stabilization fund?
I mean, I think it's a start. I think we do want to have the 10%. The minimum. I mean, yes, more is always, like as a CFO, I would say more is better, but it's we also want to be conscientious of what the board and all the customers, folks in the communities, want to utilize their funds for. Having said that, 20%, that'd be great as a target, but we can't get there in 1 year, and that's a couple $100 million. We don't have a budget surplus that big.
All right, thank you very much. First and second discussion about something else. Let me go to public, unless other discussion, clarifying questions from the committee? No? Public comment? Yes, no? Yes. In the room, and then maybe online. And then I will ask a question too. Please.
Thank you so much for the space for public comment. I realize it's a very late night, so I'll try to keep it short and succinct. But I just first wanted to appreciate the advisory committee's mindfulness around affordability for ratepayers. So thinking about the ratio of customer credit, I think is really important. But I also wanted to uplift a comment made by another commissioner here about the possibility of creating a community foundation grant fund. And as a member of the Local Clean Energy Alliance with the team of Jessica Tovar and Daniela Suarez, and also the People's Clean Power Alliance, we actually looked through the audited financial statement from 2023 to 2024 and saw just the strength and power of Ava Community Energy's financial trends from that year. And we also analyzed, even if we had 1% of the budget surplus of 107 million, that would still amount to around 1 million. And actually another community choice aggregator was mentioned tonight, the San Diego Community Power, and SDCP actually actively directly collaborated with a San Diego Community Foundation to offer 1.2 million and offered to grants in the community from 25,000 to 100,000. And I think that's a way to maximize Ava's financial strength during this time. LCEA supports, Ava's forethought of thinking about how the power charge indifference adjustment rates and reforms next year might impact all CCAs across the state. But even having 1%, to even have a priority number 5 in the financial waterfall to be community investments and benefits in alignment with the just foundational document of the local development business plan is so possible. And yeah, we really think that would help overall in the longevity of Ava Community Energy. So thank you for hearing this out.
Jessica Tovar.
Jessica Tovar, Local Clean Energy Alliance. Yeah, I do want to echo, and just for clarity, I know that the agency has a program, but to give you a little bit of a background, back in 2019, there was a community innovation grant fund that was allocated to, I think it was like 6 organizations at like $40,000. And that was a program that came out of the local development business plan. And then San Diego Community Power was inspired to start a program based off of that. The issue with this agency is they offered it once and then never again. It was designed to be an annual program. Every year, as this agency looks at its fiscal budget or surpluses, should allocate money that can be redistributed back into the community with no strings attached, but with certain kind of parameters like clean energy, resilience, that kind of thing, and just really support organizations in the work that they're doing. And especially now at a time where we know that federal funds are no longer exist for this work. State funds are also dwindling. And the fact that we have an agency that can rake in 107 million in surpluses in 1 year means that there's so much that could be done for the community through this agency. So just to give another kind of bit of background, back in, I think it was 2022-ish, or 2023 maybe, where the agency actually put forth money, like a huge amount of money, to offer grants for 3 years. And the issue with that is they're all designed to market for the agency. So there's a lot of specific deliverables that organizations have to meet for these funds. And it really is more a request for proposals. It's kind of like your contracting organization, which is great for large organizations, but small organizations cannot play that game without having some kind of organizational partner that's larger than them and that can manage that kind of work. So essentially, this fund would pretty much give money to the local foundations, East Bay Community Foundation, San Joaquin County Community Foundation. There's also nonprofits that do pass through. There's a national one that actually gives money to Resilience Hub organizations doing Resilience Hub work. And so it's a way to distribute money that has no strings attached, but has the name attached to it. And it's a way for the agency to do good in the community. I'm out of time. I would love to say so much more. We did try to email you all, and thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. We have one more. Hello. I thought there was a shaking no.
I wasn't planning on it, but I really want to support what our community members are raising here. I don't know if you, I'm sure you've heard Jessica speak because I've been to these meetings before too. But she represents an organization that has 60 member organizations and has been recognized internationally for her leadership in environmental everything. And the thing she's saying about the community development grants is like really solid. These grants are small, like we're talking about such small amounts of money, and they make such a huge difference. And we know through science that innovation and investment in innovation and creativity from folks who have credibility on the ground goes a really long ways. So I have long been advocating that the community development grants, like actual investment in community organizations in our territory so they can build capacity and bring their solutions that are appropriate for their communities, exist. And especially as the territory is expanding and all of those things are happening, like we need to make sure that we are connected in those spaces. And those grants have been a really epic way to get the name of the agency out with credibility to people who don't usually hear or care about a power company. So it allows penetration into spaces we don't have. It allows the kind of creativity that we really need. And I wasn't planning on talking on this, but really strongly support any recommendation that would get those community development grants back in. They're really important. They're the foundation of who we are as an agency, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions or clarifying or comments? I see member vice chair. No worries. Don't need to apologize. It's part of the job.
So looking again at the recommended allocation of budget surplus, there's a number of recommendations. Staff is recommending 100% allocation to RSF, the reserve fund, the GasX fund, what you formerly called the GasX fund. So we've already voted on, we kind of boxed ourselves in. We already voted. We say we support the rate stabilization fund. What do we want to do with that vote? And we have in front of us, we always have another option and just say, well, we could do this and redefine everything, which has been brought forth. But I think the numbers that Rudy and team have made are numbers that are real. I think that the rate stabilization fund is necessary. I think they're looking at some sort of a risk with this of not being compliant or something along those lines, because I know we have to be in compliance with our rates. We have to offer a discount to offset or to be in competition with PG&E. So 4 cents, 3 cents that we need per kilowatt hour, trying to be fast about this, but sorry. What is the 80% RSF, 20% reserves? What does the 20% reserves mean? It's taking out of the reserves versus can you give us a little bit more on that, or is that?
It's just a different allocation. So we still have room under the target for reserves. If you go all the way to the top, we had a budget last year, a waterfall that was approved of 78 million going to reserves. And this really just changes that allocation. It lowers what we actualized, which was 107 million, and contributes some to the reserves, 20% of that total, just to keep trying to get to our 50% target.
So if we go with the fourth one, would we lose some programs? We would lose those programs anyway, right? The 100% bill credit,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not, it doesn't change like programs that we're already going to pay for in our budget. This is just taking prior year's revenues and not recognizing them. So then, we would actually publish financial statements that looked like we had no net income. We were perfectly balanced. And then we defer all those net revenues, 107 million, into a couple of different buckets. And those buckets are laid out there, but yes, they wouldn't go into solar and storage incentives, which already have 15 million in there. We wouldn't do the 10 million, and then additional 19 million into customer credits. That wouldn't occur as well.
so we wouldn't be tapping those then.
We just wouldn't allocate funds for those into the account, into the rate stabilization fund. So we're just changing the allocation that's already been approved.
Thank you.
Bernie?
Okay, well, thank you. This discussion has been helpful to me. It's also confused me a little bit, but it's been helpful. And I appreciate Member Landry bringing up the community projects and hearing from members of the public supporting that. When Member Davis and Member Balkson were speaking on keeping the customer credits, I was agreeing with that and hearing the whole discussion. I know it sounds like splitting the baby, but it's like, I mean, this is an action item for the board. So, I mean, if we're going to take a position, we have to take a position. Just kind of hearing the discussion, and it seems like something we could dig into for hours and asking many questions, but I'm not just getting a temperature check about possibly proposing 5%, proposing that consideration of 90% to the RSF and 5% for the community projects, I'm using the wrong term, and 5% for customer credits. I don't know if that's just splitting the baby or whatnot.
I'd like to revise my motion to that.
There would have to be a second
I'll second.
from the original motionary person second. Who was the first?
The first one was just the credits.
No, who was the first? Who was the second? You were the first?
And I think Jim was the second.
Jim was the second?
Yes. And I accept it as well.
You accept it as well.
So same team, your suggestion.
I had an alternative that I was going to present,
Oh, okay.
but that's another
If you'd like-
substitute. We have a substitute. I was suggesting, hearing from the CFO, if they'd like to keep at least $10 million, 10% minimum, which is $90 million. That's 85% RSF, which is the Rate Stabilization Fund, would be 85%, 10% customer credits, and 5% to this Community Innovation Grants Program legacy. But it might be like 85% gets them to that 10% number. So they have about $900 million in reserves. If we look at $90 million, that's 85% RSF, Rate Stabilization Fund, versus the 90 they're asking for. So we're looking at the minimum. So then minimum at 10% is $90 million, and that's 85% of the full bucket of the $107 million. You keep the 10% customer credits they're proposing. We're just trying shave off a little bit off the rate stabilization fund to give more toward this. I'm gonna call this community innovation grants or the foundation work that supports it. So we used to have the community innovations grant program. I helped select those programs the first years on the board, supported organizations doing good work in the community. It could be an alternative, but I just want to throw that out there. I want to see what people think based on the first and second just dialogue. Or do you think the board is more receptive to taking that 90-10 and that 10% going to customer credits and grants? So I just want to, because I know they're more conservative, I just want to hear the dialogue around that second substitute motion.
I would, so in response to that, so I would actually trust you to have a better feel for the temperature of the board. But what you're proposing, I'm totally open to. Yeah, if you,
Yeah, me too.
and the question would be that just what you're saying is whether or not the board would.
Yeah.
Would hear, but yeah, I'd be open to that.
Yeah, and I think,
Or whatever.
yeah, and I think just to find this, I think the board will probably be open to that 90-10, but I think they want to push them a little bit more. And then rationalize maybe the extra 5% could go towards community grant programs or foundation efforts. So,
Yeah, I think that's good.
so I know there's a substitute motion, or it was revised, excuse me. It was amended first and second to Mr. I would ask that we can do the 85, 10, and 5.
85, 10, 5.
Yeah, so given to 85 to the RSF, 10 to customer credits, and 5 to like call it community innovation grants, or whatever is back out to the community through either directly or pass through the foundation. Either one be fine.
Yeah.
Is that okay with the first and second, sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
I make
All
a
right.
motion.
All right, so any other comments online? Yes.
Yes, may I ask, like speaking in percentages, could we translate that to like, what are we looking at in terms of like per customer credits? And then what are we looking at in terms of an amount for?
Yes, I have that up. 90 million.
program?
Yes, so from the $107 million, $90 million would be 85% of the RSF. $10.7 million would be customer credits, and $5.35 million would be community innovation grants via foundations, which is a pass-through, or internal efforts. So $90 million, which is 10% of that overall operating budget. In this case, 85% of the $107 million would go to the rate stabilization fund. That 10% of the $107 million would be 10.7 million would go to customer credits. And that 5% we're shaving off from that 90-10 would be for community innovation grants, as we'll call it for now, $5.35 million.
Got it. And so for comparison to last year on the customer credits, I'm seeing it was 22 million total return to customers, and like 11 million of that was Carafera. So we have, it looks like half the total this year in that scenario going to all of those customers, like Carafera residential and non-residential. I feel like that looks, it's pretty small per bill at the end of the day.
If it's
right?
half, do you want to amend it to say just secure and fair customer credits?
I think that's what we said at one of the past meetings, the last year when we voted, right? We said Karen Farah and not everybody. Didn't we do that? The last.
Member Harper?
I was gonna say, if we were to keep it at Karen Farah, that would be providing just about the same amount that was provided to Karen Farah customers last year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So you want
Just to make it like a meaningful investment in folks that need the support the most, I think I would ask for that.
So request the amendment to say Karen Farah customer
Mhm.
credits. All right, hearing that, how's the first and second feeling about it? Sounds good to the first and second. Got it. All right, so anything else, Member Harper?
No, that's all. I appreciate the dialogue.
Thank you. So we have a first and second. We have dialogue clarification. Okay, so just to restate, 85% of the funds of 107 will go toward the rate stabilization fund. 10% will go to Karen Fair for customer credits, for Care Fair customer credits, and 5% will be to a community innovations grant that could go through to foundations or other internal efforts. Is that agreed to the first and second summarization?
Yes.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call vote, Adrian?
Yes, thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Buxton,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes. Yes.
Checker.
Yes.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. I know it's late. If you have something urgent and important on item C8, please say so now. Yes, please say, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for keeping us here a little bit longer.
No worries. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Wanted to give the entire committee just a heads up that our team is looking to bring an item to our October executive committee that will have an impact on the CAC, a positive impact though. It's finally time to start to formally incorporate our unincorporated San Joaquin County communities into the seat allocations for our CAC. So as a reminder, 10 of our CAC seats are allocated regionally based on JPA vote share slash load from each community annually. So we're going to just bring a proposal as a way to add unincorporated county to those seat allocations. The neatest way and what we're leaning towards is something akin to just adding a seat to the entire committee. So no kind of messy reallocation, just adding a seat, bringing the total up to 13 seats. So we'll get to welcome a new member if all goes to plan. And then that new seat would then be allocated to the San Joaquin County region, which already includes Lathrop, Stockton, and Tracy, and then will also include unincorporated San Joaquin County. So I can, work with the chair to provide an update and overview of what the executive committee discusses, and then what will go on to the board, hopefully in October if all goes to plan. So yeah, we can work on providing some kind of overview at the next CAC meeting. We also might include in there just a couple of very small kind of updates to the language of our CAC guide. No real substantive impact on CAC procedure, but just a heads up that will be incoming. And if you're interested, you can follow along the executive committee items when they're posted. So cool, that's it.
Thank you.
Yes, can I ask for the date of that meeting, please?
Yes, I believe it is October 1st. The executive committee. Yes, so that'll be the first public discussion, the October 1st executive committee. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Anything, other things from staff or the committee?
I would just remind the staff, I'm sure that everyone is aware that the October meeting will be held in the 4th week of the month rather than the 3rd week. The next meeting will be on October 20th. Next board meeting will be on October 22nd.
And location will be?
Will be at Ava. We'll be returning to our offices.
With that, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. If you will.
The other.
We didn't include it.
Firing me.
So what?
I tried to